up today. Yeah, a lot of different directions that you can go. Um, yeah, my brain keeps going back though to if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I'm not saying that it's perfect either. And I definitely am not in the mindset of like just shut it down because it ain't broke. So don't do anything to make improvements. I'm not saying that either.
Yeah.
But the far-fetchedness of like making such a drastic change, like a one-time a year sort of situation for the open-seated brackets, which is what we were just talking about before we started here. The one time a year seems like more doable. Seems like you almost need to do like test drives. You need to test drive it, test drive it again, make changes here, test drive it again, make changes there. And then maybe sometime in the future you could see a permanent change like that. Because I mean, it sounds awesome theoretically. It sounds really, really cool.
Yeah.
At face value, but making a change like that without doing those kind of test drives is like, and you did it in Oklahoma, and I really want to hear more actually about what your thoughts were about that tournament. You talked about it a little bit briefly.
Yeah. Well, we can talk about it now, but we are live officially.
Yay! So arm wrestling, baby. Arm wrestling, baby. Let's go.
Sorry, we started the conversation a little bit early, but
I was trying to add
guys
there.
Yeah, you didn't miss anything. But, since you started that off, hey, I mean, let's dive right into it, right? And we're going to have another model like Robert Kelly has his event, another triple elimination event coming down in Oklahoma at the end of December. So we're going to see another model.
What's that?
And he's got, you know what? You're going to make me lie. Hold on. I've got the flyers in my phone real quick. Let's see. But he's got a payout scale that he's implementing based on the number of entries in each class.
Man, trendsetter.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's kind of his. That's kind of his idea behind all this. Is
I love it. I love it.
So Red Lightning end of the year tournament. Let's see what we got.
I can see a flyer for this. So Red Lightning end of the year tournament. Where are they having it at?
It's going to be in Oklahoma City on 12/28. It's a triple elimination. He's also using the 7.5 by 9.5 elbow pads.
Oh yeah, I saw that picture today. That's a considerable size difference.
They're massive. They are massive.
It sounds. I love it. You don't. What do we hate to see? We hate to see the fiddling around, on the grip. We hate to see the elbow fouls.
Dude, it's like a red pillow. I mean, in the combat, and obviously the combat, So here's a little backstory to this, right? If most people don't know, WAL tables are combat arm sport tables.
Oh, okay.
Those were designed and built by Combat Arm Sport. Yeah, the previous owner, Brady Ellis. Now, there wasn't any logo or advertising on the outside of it, I guess, due to, promotional issues or whatever they worked out. But that table for WAL is a Combat Arm Sports table. So we have still materials for what I thought was 7 by 9, or it's actually 7.5 by 9.5.
Oh wow!
So it's actually bigger than what I even thought.
Do you remember real quick? Do you remember what we were using at Flashpen 2?
8 by 8.
Oh man. Okay. So
wow.
Okay.
Just I mean, we're talking like 1/4 of an inch. Well, like the 8 by 8. I mean, we're talking because when you spread it out, it's half, right? So 1/4 of an inch smaller on the width, but goes completely to the back of the table lengthwise.
Okay. Yeah, I see what the thought process is there. At least I think I do.
Yeah. Now, so going back to that, let's see what he's got. He's got an open class, what he's considering an open class, and then what he's considering a pro class.
Okay.
So
that is based on like just literally open and then pro. That's what he's doing.
I mean,
and then the open would be the triple elimination, and then the pro class would be the same thing, or
I think it's all triple elimination.
Okay.
So he's also doing running fouls again with warning in the set grip. So the open classes are $30. Flighted classes, depending upon entries, class will split at 15 per class, and they'll run after the pro. He's got a schedule for it. Pro classes are $50 an arm, and the weight classes there are 160, 190, 220, 255, and 256 plus. He's got a 0 clothing allowance. So
Wow.
on the money weight. And his payout scale is, he's got it all listed. So 2 entries is $50, 3 entries 75, 4 100, and it goes on. If you get 10 entries in your class, then first place will pay out $250.
Okay.
So, and then so on and so on if there happens to be more, right?
Yeah.
So,
man. And then I would assume it's Robert. He's doing a live stream.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely. Always live streaming for sure.
Well, that will be exciting to see how it goes. I'm wishing for all of the entries to show up for this one. That sounds, that's a test dummy there. That'll be awesome to see.
I think his plan is to actually take that to other locations. Like he's planning events and everywhere he goes. So he does a lot of traveling around for his live stream, and then he's going to be planning events.
Well, be doing events too, huh?
Different states and cities, and so it's going to be interesting to see how that works out. It's actually kind of good because you hear everybody talk about what do you want, right? The question's always, what do people really want? Mm-hmm. Do they want badass trophies? Do they want payouts? Do they want whatever, what do you want out of a tournament? Yeah. So you always have that question. So it'll be interesting to see that if you literally are, like for that, his pay scale, it's just me and you in the class, one of us is going to win our entry fee back.
Yeah. Which, makes sense. That's like,
here's the thing, you can do a lot of things. This is part of the conversation that we had, like with this whole seeding thing and one bracket and all that kind of stuff. Look, I can do a lot of things. From a TAL's perspective, right? If I was throwing an event just for the event, and at the end of it, it didn't matter if I was trying to scratch out right at 0, right? We could do, our regionals could have a lot going on at each one of them. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Now that leads into, okay, well, now I'm hoping for a good turnout because now I don't have any money moving forward to pay, so it really, it depends on your model. If you're just throwing the tournament for a tournament, and at the end of the day, and the end of it all, there's a little scratch left over, and then you just move on to the next tournament, you're throwing it just like that, then there's a lot of things you could do.
Sure.
Yeah,
I know from my perspective what I'm looking at, but I know it's different for everybody. We were kind of talking about that, but for me, it's like I'm showing up to a tournament. I plan for that tournament. I'm showing up to that tournament as healthy as I possibly can be, and my goal for me is that I want to be better. I want to beat guys that I'm not supposed to beat. I want my ELO to increase on Eris. I want my TAL ranking to increase. I want to get better. And ultimately, the most table time I can get when I'm as healthy as possible, that's what I'm looking for. And the trophies and the medals and the all the things are nice. But at my level where I'm at, that's what I want.
Sure.
And, you got your guys that want their payouts and they also want that thing. So that's what I'm looking for. I feel like I get that a lot. More table time sounds really cool. So that brings up the triple elimination. More table time sounds really awesome. As an athlete, it sounds really awesome for amateurs. I know that for people's practices, it's really just kind of now becoming into fruition for a lot of teams, the ready go training, where they're getting the ready goes, but then getting them in a atmosphere, a tournament atmosphere hosted by the TAL it's different. Even doing that ready go training, and so the more you can get, the better. So you get more bang for your buck. So I could add on to that and say that would be a cool benefit for pros and amateurs all around.
Yeah. Yeah.
I could also see it lasting about twice as long, and we already have trouble getting through the entirety of a tournament, in the best time. So, hey guys, is the 176 event series next year only for pros?
So, Gabriel, the answer is no. It's actually not for pros. It's actually the Super 64 by Corey Miller and assisted and with Frank Callahan. The idea behind that is that it is an event for the middle of the road guys, right? So I just talked to Corey today. He's going to be getting the list out of everybody that qualifies for that, and it will be based on your ELO, and it will be like and kind of like an upper level beginner to a maybe an upper level amateur in slightly into the say open category. So
that
he'll
1500 to 1550 is
somewhere around there. I don't want to quote it when he comes out with it, but it'll encompass the middle of the road guys, and it's going to be a right hand only. Pre-registration. We'll have all that information out as soon as Corey can get to me, because we need to start getting ready. May's just around the corner, and we want all 64 guys. We want 64 guys signed up. We want this to be huge. So
yeah, and they were kind of running into issues with that for this Tennessee tournament, I believe. With how do you say his name? Is it Larry? Is it just Larry?
Larray.
Okay.
Yeah. But really, in all reality, what Larray was looking for isn't what the Super 64 is looking for. It's really two totally demographics.
He's looking for the best. The Super 64 is looking for breakout opportunities for people that are on that they're riding the fence on, like being really good or being good and amateur level. Yeah.
Now the problem with this is that what we're running into, or what we're seeing them run into, is that they can't get the guys they want committed to the events, right? Larray can't get the top guys committed,
Why do you think having,
it's tough. We can this is just like any other scenario, right?
Well, we can get rid of money. We know money is always going to be the initial beginning of it. Like, no matter who you are, you can say, well, we're, going to buy a plane ticket to come pull all of these great guys and, not get any sort of return out of it. So aside from the financial portion of it, what do you think it is?
Well, I mean, the one good thing I think about what I think Larray has going is that, him and I think it's Chris Griffin as the other guy with Beast Mode.
That's right.
The payouts are really good. So
yeah.
Let me see if I can find it real quick. Just want to see if I can find the flyer on it.
But it's also a really big tournament, right? So they're paying out up to like a high, number of people, but there's also a lot of really high level arm wrestlers there too, competing for that pay, right? So
it looks like they're doing like a pay scale for that tournament, right? So they want 32 people in each bracket.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And they're planning on paying out, X amount of entries, So I think the entry fee is like $100.
Yep.
And the last post I see on that event says we will give away 50% of the entries that come in. For example, 16 people, $800 payout for first place.
Okay.
So, but that's the going back to what I was saying, is that's kind of the problem, right? Is that so Larray can't get the top people to kind of commit to this, right, and fill these brackets. So therefore, he's having to dig down a little deeper into the mid-level guys.
Mhm.
So now you're getting into that where you're clashing with Corey Miller's Super 64, because now you're dipping into the mid-level pool. If everything worked out perfectly, they would not affect each other at all.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, arm wrestling is a funny sport in that way, where the separation between injured lefty still from Cali, Anthony Lowe going, but I'm injured lefty still from Cali.
yeah,
Sucks.
everybody got hurt at that event, man. Robbie Burnett got hurt. Anthony got hurt. You know, I don't know what was going on
the
there.
World Series of Arm Wrestling Finals, right?
Yeah.
Sounded like that was a great success. So shout out, props to Greg Sharp on that one.
Definitely better than years prior. So hopefully that's a good thing. That's looking up,
Yeah, and that's another person. That's another deal where he pays out to 8th place, I believe. So there's no payouts whatsoever except for overalls, which is largely taken from the big man Corey West.
I would like to see him go to a different tournament.
Yeah,
for one.
Yeah, well,
like, go to the East. Go to one of Greg's East Coast and let somebody else win the overall. In Texas for once.
Yeah, it left a bad taste in my mouth for overalls for sure. But I also see the value in overalls as well. And so, yeah, I don't. But yeah, he's another guy that pays out to, I believe, 8th place is what he does for the World Series of Arm Wrestling Finals, and then, it sounded like they were pretty successful.
Yeah, and Anthony's stacked. It did. Yeah, from everybody I'm hearing for it was definitely a stacked tournament. So,
which is what you want to see, which is what Luray is trying to create in Tennessee. I hope that they're able to get that tournament filled out. Those guys that you're talking about that are maybe getting plucked up from that. Let's go, Sky. Let's go. I think that's Sky. It's one of those mutual.
I don't. It's one of those weird joint accounts. Come on,
yeah.
Come on. Who am I talking to? Are we talking to Sky or are we talking to Dustin? Who are we talking to?
I'm trying to remember what the concept was for that house. It was kind of like what Woody's been talking about lately.
It's like think of the Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah. So is the intention to bring in the best sort of a deal, and then
I don't think it's necessarily the best, right? Because there's an application process. So I think they're going to choose different people that could be based on. This is where, and this we're going to go so many different ways, but I'm going to go ahead and jump kind of like on the side. This is where your presence in the community could make a really big deal, right?
Yeah.
You could not be the best, but we have a lot, and this is no offense to anybody, right? We have a lot of really good arm wrestlers that are like knots on a log.
Sure.
Right?
Yep.
They're not out in social media. They don't care to be out in social media. And so when you think about, these things like the house, this is a production, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want to have something
you're
there.
You're on all the time.
Wow. Yeah. And so you have to look at, do you not put yourself out there social medially, like, out in the atmosphere where you might be like, let's just put it for like an example. The Arm Wrestling Whisper.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Guy had 1 million followers,
great example,
and subscribers and stuff, on social media before he ever pulled his first tournament. Right. Now, granted, he's pulled since then, and we kind of found out, well, maybe he's all right, like he's decent, and stuff like that. But this is somebody that, basically put their front footprint on the community without ever actually having to arm wrestle competitively yet.
Yeah, I talked to my buddies on the phone and back home, and then that's one of the subjects that they would bring up. Have you heard of the Whisper? And like the first thing I do is I go, oh, Yes, I have. Yes, I have. And God
Yeah.
bless him for everything that he's
Yeah.
done for the sport.
But see, this is kind of the problem, though, Anthony. Like, I get it. Some people aren't the social media people, and that's fine, right?
With
You're
your mind, Anthony Lowe, I hate that you're not on social media with
right,
your
right.
your arm wrestling centered mind, and especially the way that you explain things. I remember the first East versus West qualifiers. I have a video of it on my phone actually for the TAL, the first qualifier. And I remember you explaining a particular move, and the way that you explained that just rang to me in my head. And you were talking to Dustin DeWoody. I was just, sitting there listening to you film it, and I'm like, you have a way of explaining things that, God, I wish a lot of people would improve if they got to hear from you more. So I'm
Well,
not
see,
okay with you being a bump on a log, Anthony.
well, but here's the problem, right? This is the if you're talking in a I would pick Anthony, obviously, because I know Anthony. I know what he brings to the table. I know his competitive history. It's all that's great. But if I'm looking for as a production side of things, right? I don't want a guy necessarily like sit. If I'm looking for, especially like with Greg doing the house, right? He's apparently, from the bits that I've seen and watched from him, there's going to be the arm wrestling side of things where you train and compete. And then there's going to be stuff outside of that, right? There's going to be challenges and tasks that aren't arm wrestling related, right? So this is where these individuals' characters kind of get to shine outside of arm wrestling. So you get to kind of show that here, and then you get to show the other side here. So unfortunately, you might see something where if you've got a list of candidates, Anthony Lowe might be your top pick for your arm wrestler. But like you said, he's okay with being not on a log. But you got this guy over here that is not as good of an arm wrestler, but like the dude's great, like in a social media presence. So from a production side of things, you've got a problem, right? What do you choose?
You got to think too with what you brought up as an example with the UFC house. What's it called? You just said it. Anyways, with what I'm talking about. Get all the fighters in there. What you see, you get to see both sides, and that's kind of what makes the difference. There isn't a correlation between arm wrestling influencers and being good at arm wrestling. In fact, I dare say that there is an inverse correlation, and that's kind of actually tagging on to what I was about to say.
Frank obviously wasn't listening because that's exactly what we were saying, right?
Yeah. you get to see, like, there's really special people in the gym.
What's up, James?
They just don't really have, that outgoing social media sort of, but like you see them in the gym and they're a completely different person. But yeah, so it almost adds to their character. Like you get to see both sides. You get to see like, well, this is why this guy's so good at the sport. Like, hello. Like he might not be, flaunting and posting Instagram reels every day and this, that, and the other, but that's why he's so good. You get to see that side too. And that adds to the definition. That adds to the character. And so, I got big hopes for it. I think it'll be a really good thing. We never did get an answer on whether that was Sky or Dustin.
It's Dustin.
It was Dustin. Okay.
Yeah. He answered
he's the whole package, right? Dustin is the whole package. He's an animal in the gym, animal on the table, and he's good at social media too. He's he puts on a show sometimes. We talked about it on the last one. We get way up here, but I love it. Keep doing it.
Yep. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't even know where we were at. All right.
The World Series of Arm Wrestling, what they had going on. We were talking about LeRae and what he had going on with Tennessee.
Yep. What Robert had going on in Oklahoma.
Yeah. And then what is Robert doing with – so he's got that going on, which I didn't know about with the tournaments, and he's taking that with him. And I saw him make a post today about armwrestling.live. And so what's the situation? The
armwrestling.live is his pay-per-view platform.
Okay. And so he's like, you can use this platform for your events. Okay. Got it.
So he's like, he's providing the service. Like, as we kind of talked about last time, he's starting to do, I don't know if he's done it yet. I think he may have. I'd have to ask him, but maybe he'll be on here later. He can chime in, but he's putting together like a equipment package that you could essentially rent for your event, right? Through Red Lightning Arm Wrestling, right? He would somehow get, I don't know if he'd ship it or whatever like that, but anyway, you'd get this equipment. You'd have everything set up for a live stream, like single camera, whatever, right? And you have, the setup, and then you could do it, and then you do it through his armwrestling.live pay-per-view, like if you wanted to do a pay-per-view event, and so that's how he's kind of branching off his service, a little bit, because he does a lot of traveling. So, and he's as far as to my knowledge, he's getting a lot of requests for a live stream, so his schedule is pretty booked up.
RAAS, Robert as a Service. I love it. The nerd joke. Probably nobody got it.
Let's see. What else we got going on? We got December 7th is going to be a really big
we spoke briefly about the young Matthew Pressler, arm wrestles, Austin here with us, the Arsenal. He's looking to crack into the top 10 in Texas rankings. And so he's 154. He would like to have a super match with somebody that's in the top 10. And he wants a challenge. He wants to get his feet wet. So if you're listening, 154, top 10, you're looking for a young stud, come whip on you. Matthew's the guy.
Yep. Yeah, so that he's looking at that for kind of our end of the year match. It's a little bit different than what we've thrown in the past. So this year it's just going to be a big practice. Everyone's invited. Bring the family, bring the kids, bring your teammates. We'll have a big practice. If you have a match you want to get out of the way, we'll have refs, a bolted down table, for any official matches and stuff like that. And we're just there to facilitate. If guys want to throw it, like I had a little idea of like maybe like we could do like 4-man brackets where you do best single elimination, best 2 out of 3 each round, right? And if the guys want to put into a pot, if they want to buy in for $50, winner take all, whatever, we're going to be there to facilitate. So if guys want to put something together like that, hit me up. And we're just going to have a good time. It'll also be a charity event for Toys for Tots. So be sure if you are coming, bring a toy or a small donation, to go towards Toys for Tots. And so that's going to be a good time. Like Dustin just said, Washington State. Like I said, December 7th is a big date.
It could be a breakout tournament for a lot of people. We've got Steve Root going. That's exciting.
He's going to Washington State?
Yep. Yeah, super excited about him going, and hopefully that will be his breakout tournament.
That'd be good.
Yeah, a lot of Dustin, you should have reminded. There's some people that are showing up to that one worth mentioning, and that I'd like to be able to share their name on it.
Yeah, the promotion, the flyer just came out today. Looks like Cobra Rhodes is going to be there for special guests.
Super cool. Always good to have Cobra there.
Yeah. Of course, Tim's put together a handful of matches. We've got a couple female matches, a couple male matches, super matches. Those matches are all going to go down on Friday night. And then you'll have Corey Miller Super 64 198 right hand tournament early in the morning. I think like 9:00 start time.
That's right. The same day?
Yeah, Washington State, same day as the tournament. Yep.
Oh man, okay, yeah, definitely a breakout tournament. Yeah, super important one to be paying attention to. Okay.
And then of course after that you'll have your regular Washington State, event. So that's going to be a super long day. Regardless of how efficient you run it, right? It's going to be a long day for everybody. People working, the pullers. So definitely going to be
Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, sorry. I'm late. Had to work late and traffic's a mess.
No, it's all good. Actually, too, December 7th, I believe, is also Ryan Espy's event in Canada, which I think is the only Arnold qualifier
There
in Canada. Yeah.
Is that where they're having it? In Toronto?
No, it's some other place. I'd have to probably go to his page and look, but
I'll find out.
Yeah, you have to research that one.
We have
speaking
next year, Billy.
What's that?
We have an Arnold qualifier next year.
No, I haven't. I haven't gotten into talks with the Knuckles Up guys yet about what would be 2026's Arnold qualification. So,
right.
So we'll see. I know, like right now they're in super planning mode. They've got their Knuckles Up event, I think, in January, and they're also doing a last chance qualifier for the Arnolds in January as well. So that would be the last opportunity if you wanted to go to the Arnolds to qualify for it if you didn't already.
Where's that going to be?
That's up in the Northeast. Let's see. I actually have the flyer here. Let's see. It's gonna be. Where is the?
Are you looking for Ryan Espy's?
No, I'm talking about the Arnold qualifier. It's at the Barrymore Film Center in maybe New Jersey.
Yeah,
New Jersey.
And then Ryan Espy's is in Winnipeg, Manitoba.
Busy,
man. I love it.
Yep.
A lot going on in the arm wrestling world.
Yep.
We got I don't know if I'm dealing with a Jake Paul, Mike Tyson situation with Eddie Hall and Brian Shaw, but
I think this is.
I'm excited for it. I can't wait to see it. I hope it's like great movement out of these guys because you got Devin Larratt, who's now been there twice. Brian Shaw, he's a big dude, so his movements look clunky, but God, does he look strong?
Well, yeah, I mean,
but like arm
obviously strong.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I don't know. I've said this to a couple people, and I don't think this is the right move for Brian Shaw's arm wrestling career.
Doing the Eddie Hall thing first?
I mean, doing King of the Table first, right? So let me just lay out my
Eddie Hall. So it's
let me lay out my argument here, right? Okay. So it's
arm wrestling whisperer. Is that
no? Well, I mean, it does have to do with following, right? So Brian Shaw has a massive following, right? Mm-hmm. And this is part of the reason why everybody's so excited. It's not necessarily there are thousands of other strongmen out there, mm-hmm. right? People are excited because one, it is Brian, and then two, because he has a massive following, right? Mm-hmm. So people are, people in the background are looking at tapping into that, right? That's the whole point, right? Which is the whole point. They want to put him on the King of the Table stage, right? They want to put him on one of the biggest stages to get his face out there as quickly as possible to the top. Mm-hmm. Here's my argument. I think that could be a bad move. It could work out. It could work out, but I think it's a bad move, and here's why, right? So, and I'm looking at it from a completely different point of view. All right.
Uh-huh.
He's new to arm wrestling, right? There's a huge story, right, that could be made, almost documentary, right, leading up to the pinnacle stage, right? So think about this, right?
I did not expect you to say that, but okay, I'm with you.
Yeah. So think about this. If you're a Brian Shaw fan and you don't know arm wrestling, right? Mm-hmm. And then you see Brian's getting into it. Okay, I'm starting to get a little excited. It looks pretty cool. All right. So if he goes and injures himself against Eddie,
yeah,
and then says, you know what, I just can't do this. Obviously, I have a whole nother life that pays my bills in strongman. I can't be getting hurt in arm wrestling, and leaves. I don't think his following doesn't have the time to fall in love with arm wrestling, right? To stick around.
Yep.
So here's what
I think he's done with strongman, which is why the transition to.
He's not done with strongman. He will always be part of strongman. Like he'll either from the promoting side or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But here's my thing, right? So you start like this, right? Okay, so he's putting out some training content. Okay, that's cool. But like, you allow his following to follow him through the process, right? So you take him, you train him up. That's what's happening right now. We see that. Boom, you hit a couple local tournaments, right? Because he's never, I mean, whether we know he's going to win or not, it doesn't matter, right?
Sure.
He enters the local tournament. He goes through the process, right? He wins. Boom. And we're not talking about how this is going to take like 2 years, right? This could happen very quickly. Still, he enters 1 or 2 local tournaments, kills those, right? Now, all of a sudden, the new year rolls around. We walk into a couple more like prestigious tournaments, maybe Michigan State or something like that. Michigan State is early in the year.
Yeah.
Right. So we walk into Michigan State, boom, we take that. His followers are watching his progression and his story through this whole thing. Right.
Mm-hmm.
He kills a couple of these, more prestigious events. And then we move him into the king of the table. And whether that's against Eddie Hall or somebody else, okay, whatever. Yeah. But you've given 4 to 6 months of his fans now watching arm wrestling, right?
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully falling in love with the sport. That way, if anything happens, right? You've got arm wrestling kind of has their hook in them, right? They stick around for some stuff,
Yes. Yeah, I'm with you. I see where you're coming from. But I also am like, you're talking about the strongest man, 2 of the strongest men in the world. Like, it's just fun. It's just a fun thing.
But it also could get weird. Like, it could be bad, right?
Well, that's what happened, right? So they initially in the World's Strongest Man, they tried to have arm wrestling be a part of it, right? Like they had that, and it was a little bit silly. But shut up, Dustin. But
say he was,
and then the dude's arm got broken. So
say he comes in and gets hurt. And then,
and so I don't know. I think it'll be cool. Both fluid. Neil Pickup said the Eddie Hall looks fluid. Devin, and obviously they're gonna bump him up and they're gonna make him, juice him up and make him feel make him sound great. But all in all, it's a great thing for our sport, I think. And
yes, don't get me wrong, and I'm not trying to knock it. This could work out 100%
favorably for everybody, for sure.
Get a lot of feedback from your mic there, Dustin. I don't know if it's your vehicle or your speakers or whatever, but it could work out 100%, right? And I'm not saying this is the right or wrong way. I'm just saying there's like a lot of stuff that could be put out there leading into this, that could be beneficial. And it seems like we're just going from A to Z, like big name, everything like that. We got them, put them up there. We got to put them on the stage, right?
Yep.
Why? Like there's this whole process that we could be watching, Brian go through, and people that don't know arm wrestling that follow him and stuff like that could be going through it with him.
I mean, this card though, and it's so surprising, and I know everybody's blown, but this card is like beyond measure. This is unlike King of the Table has ever done. Like, they're not even like that. We're talking about a match that is like really bottom of the totem pole when we really get down to it. So Kevin Palco versus Joseph Moranto. And I don't know if you have watched Joseph. I know you know who Kevin Palco is.
Yeah.
But Joseph Moranto, like, I have watched him, and that's going to be an amazing match. You got Corey West with Tobias Sporong, however you say that. Really need to see something out of Corey West on the big stage, right? Like, the big stage for him has been, it's been pretty awesome, all things considered. The last time he was on the big stage, he got married, I believe, that was really cool. What an awesome thing. We got Gabby and
Barboa.
the Barbarian. That lady is a phenom. Matt Mask, Marcio Barboza. Who doesn't like to watch either of those two men? Lachlan Adair, Lars Verbakken, Brian Shaw, Eddie Hall, Paul Lynn, and Krasimir, Dave Chafee, and Gabor Sandris. Yo, have you seen Sandris lately?
Oh yeah.
Whoa.
Yep.
That is a big boy. That is a different man.
Yep.
That is a different man. And then Jerry Caderet and Levon.
That's gonna be that. Yeah, we're gonna that one is. I mean, I don't know. For a minute there, I've kind of lost interest in the big time shows. You know, there's been a lot of BS politics behind it all and stuff like that. And
England does not do well with the politics, does he?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of people that don't do well with the politics, but it I don't know. It kind of
he puts a card together like nobody's business, so that's for sure. He's got that.
Yeah. And then of course, I think it's been beat like a dead horse, but like the past two East versus West with some antics and actions and behavior from particular individuals. I don't know.
Devin Larratt.
I mean, I wasn't going to say it, but
what do you think about it? What's your personal opinion on it?
I don't like it.
How do you? Huh?
I don't like it.
You don't like it?
I don't like it. Completely turned me off because here's the thing.
Oh, you're not the only one. I know that.
I know.
Fact. You are not.
And look, all banter aside, I don't mind when guys, banter back and forth, right? It's a competition. I get it. You're going to have the crap talk back and forth and stuff like that. But man, like the last two events, for me, this is just for me, felt like it was coming from a weird place.
Real strange one, right?
Yeah, it didn't come off as just regular smack talk like we've seen Devin do in the past, or even Travis or any of these guys, right?
Yeah.
It felt really, really like it just felt like from a different place, and I think it might be some people's cup of tea. Obviously, I think the community was fairly split on that.
I think it would be fair of me to say that I don't think that particularly anybody was like super. Yeah, Devin, you just keep doing that.
Oh no, there were a lot. Like if you were following any of the threads, there were a lot of people that were like even criticizing people, like say, i.e., me with my stance, that thought it was too much. Oh, well, this is just part of the entertainment. Like, nah, it didn't feel like that, man.
Yeah. He spoke about it a little bit in the one of Artem Taranenko's videos that he just put out recently. He's in Canada right now, just went and competed there. I think he won. And one of the things that Devin said, and it really, for somebody that's really, really against what he did, it's really like they're probably not interested in hearing what he has to say about his attitude.
Yeah.
But for fairness, what he said is he attributed it to Travis Bajent and the void that Travis Bajent left in the arm wrestling world when he said that it's not like it's Travis Bajent's fault. It's just that kind of attitude, which that is not how Travis Bajent acts at all. But that kind of just, real loudest guy in the room, the heel, that kind of thing. And so what he said is he was trying to fill that void in his own way. His own way is like, super controversial, but I do kind of see where he was coming from. And then I try to put myself in his shoes, but I'm a Devin fanboy, always have been. So like, it's kind of hard to,
I'm not saying I hate the guy.
It was uncomfortable. I want to say that it was uncomfortable. The last two times, like you said, it was for me. It was like, I couldn't stop watching though. I kept watching it, but it was like, I wanted to
look, everybody loves a car wreck.
Yeah, sure.
Everybody loves a dumpster fire, right?
Yeah.
And this is the thing. It's like we're getting back to, and it's kind of reminiscent of, like, say, the gladiator days, right? It's the mob. Whoever controls the mob has the power, right? If the mob loves what you're doing, you keep doing it, So will we see that? I mean, that's the thing. Are we going to see the end of these types of deals? I don't know. It could all be BS. It could all be made up. It could all be part of this WWE, idea that arm wrestling is pushing and stuff like that. And which I've never been against. But my thing is there has to be a distinction, right? So if you take like WWE wrestling, right? And then you take actual Olympic style wrestling, everybody knows the difference. Everybody knows that when you watch WWE, it's an act. Even though the physical aspect of it all is real, right? These guys are actually jumping from the top ropes and hitting the mats and doing all this stuff, right?
Yep.
So we know it's a physical deal, but at the same token, we know it's fake. We know there's a storyline there. We know these guys are, so that to me, that just is where, like, we have a professional side of things and we have an entertainment side. As long as there's a clear distinction between the two, then I don't see very many problems. But when we start blending it, calling everything professional arm wrestling just because these guys are getting paid, like, we know some of this stuff is fake and we know some of it is an act, right? They're wanting them to be boisterous and stuff like that so, like, you don't, I don't know.
One of the things I found interesting, and I think it's a good time to bring that up right now, because you're saying that there's got to be a distinction between the two, and or maybe, for lack of a better term, a boundary. There's got to be boundaries. What I thought was interesting also in the match is when he reached his arm underneath and the table and then held onto the peg and said, "What? What am I doing?" And what it's looked like to me is that the rules were exposed by far and large, especially like with Michael Todd. But these are the rules that were set.
Yeah.
And then Devin Larratt is just playing with the boundaries of more than playing with the boundaries. He's like, he's given the boundaries real work. But with that event, it's kind of like, okay, well, the community didn't really take it that well, naturally, obviously. Okay, we'll set the line here. You went here, we're going to set it right here from here on out. And we haven't had that. I think it's fair to say that we haven't had that yet. We haven't had a pay-per-view event like that where, it's like arm wrestling is really becoming a really giant thing. It was really cool to hear Travis Bagent talk about the pay-per-view numbers. Yeah. And that was the first time that I had heard them actually speak the numbers on while they were doing the show. I think it was like 30 to 50,000 or something like that, which is, come on, like, cool. Yep. We're it's doing some things here. So
look, I mean, I'm not knocking the whole thing. It's just my feelings on all this kind of stuff. They're still going to have 40 to 50,000 pay-per-views, regardless of how I feel or not. And that's great. At the end of the day, there's something great going on there. I'm just saying that, maybe I care a little less about watching it if that kind of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's a lot of people that said the same thing that you're saying now.
Yeah. But there's going to be a lot of people that love it, and that's fine.
Yeah. Well, it's really the last two for me, where I love Devin Larratt to pieces and will always love him to pieces, and I see where he's coming from. It was hard for me to watch, but I also couldn't stop watching. So hats off to you, sir.
And we know that you have some purists and stuff like that, and then you have the people that love that kind of stuff. And I think you saw like a clear divide when you scroll through comments and discussions on these things on whether or not it was good, it was bad, it was warranted, it was not warranted. So,
I was we were in a group chat, a watch party group chat on Facebook. Me and some of the team. Frank was in there as well, and I was, I think, the only one on the opposing side. Everybody else was on like,
we love it.
What are we doing? Like, come on. I was the only one like, hey guys, like WWE and stuff. Yeah. So yeah, clear divide, huge clear divide. And I saw people come out of the woodworks, but nevertheless, did we ever figure out what the injury cases for Rhino? Do you not have any info backing that? Rhino Mosaic, did you see anything about that? So he got injured after that event that we're talking about. He posted pictures on Instagram. He had bruises up and down his arm and sounded like he was going to go into surgery. But
like in the after pulls or something?
No, it was during the match.
Okay.
That something happened, but I was just wondering if you knew anything about what was going on there.
Look, I know just enough to be in a conversation, but I don't know a lot of details when it comes to this stuff, you know? So like I'm not a really big follower of a lot of these guys, you know.
You're a pretty busy guy.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, it's just
kind of an all year round thing. So yeah, nothing to be ashamed.
Well, yeah, we're just getting a break, and you know, I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, I really don't have that long to start getting ready for next year.
Nope.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's right there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, now decisions got to be made and stuff like that.
Yeah, and so that kind of brings up the conversation that I don't know if you're ready to have yet or not about what, you know, if any change, I'll put it this way, are there any changes that you're looking at making for the 25 season for the TAL?
I mean, nothing's set in stone. I mean, I think like I told Uncle John in the interview, a lot of it's just going to be rinse and repeat, you know, trying to get more efficient at our events and stuff like that. And stuff like that. Now, and I know what you're leading into is the women's case.
It's whatever you want to talk about, sir.
Yeah. I mean, for me personally, I think there's a strong case of, is it money well spent? And could I spend that money better in another place, in another way?
And,
right?
And what you're referring to, right, is the payouts at the end of the year for Texas State Arm Wrestling, where it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to pay out this amount of money if you're getting this amount of money into said class, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of the gist of it. Yeah. And so you're talking about potentially reallocating those funds into a different area to support the women.
Yeah.
And what are your ideas on that front? What are you thinking?
So, I mean, here's the thing. And
there's nothing set in stone again, right?
No. This has just been ideas and discussions. I've had this discussion with Dustin. I haven't had the discussion fully with my director group yet. I have talked to Sarah, obviously being, you know, a female director in women's arm wrestling and stuff like that. She is all on board, you know, with this type of stuff, and rightfully so. Like, why wouldn't you, right? If you come up with the idea that, okay, rather than trying to allot that amount of money for, you know, the female classes, and you still, we've been doing this since 2021. We've been paying out $500 since 2021.
Sure.
And we still, you know, we don't fill classes at our regular regionals, and we don't even fill them at Texas State. Like, it's to the point where it's like, and this is also another thing, it's a bit ridiculous too, where, you know, you feel as a promoter, you kind of feel confined by your own rules, right? So we require
that's fair.
We require 4 to a class, right, in order to be eligible for the payout. To me, it's a really big problem, you know, for me. Going, well, I'm the only woman that showed up. I get it. I want to be able to compete for the payout. So I'm just going to grab the first 3 women I see out of the crowd that have never arm wrestled before in their life, just so I can meet the number. Like, the whole point is competition, right?
Yep.
So, you know, now as a promoter, I'm looking at an individual arm wrestle 3 other non-arm wrestlers, right, that have no chance in the world, period, or anything like that. They don't even know what they're doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I've got to hand this person $500 as if they've actually won something.
Yep.
That's difficult for me.
And that's and that's one way to look at it for sure, but it's hard to look at it any other way, I'm certain, when you just don't have that many competitors. So kind of I would venture to say that the idea is like looking at potentially just free entry for the year for women, something on the lines of that.
No, I'm not going that far.
You're looking at
no, okay. Because here's the thing. I don't believe that free entry solves anything.
Okay.
I think it's a feel-good tactic, right?
That's fair.
I like, and no offense to the promoters, like no offense to Tim Talmadge. He wants to give women free entry at Washington State, Arizona State. He has the ability to make the decision as a promoter, whether or not that's budget friendly for him or not. Right.
Well, nobody knows what the right thing to do is and what the wrong thing to do is, right?
But I can tell you that these people are still doing these. There are promoters out there doing these things right now, and they're not. It's not producing anything.
Sure.
Right. It's not all of a sudden we offer free entries at Texas. I guarantee you we won't fill a women's class next year.
For sure. For sure.
Like that's how I mean, and look, Laughlin can sit here and probably back me up on this because he's been in it from the get-go on trying to build the women's side of things.
So fostering the women that we do have, the loyal, badass women that we do have in Texas is kind of the idea.
We have a small group of women here in Texas that absolutely represent.
Yep. I think I can name them all.
And you can. Yeah, because like I said, they're a small group, right?
Yep.
We have a small group of women that, you know, we have our top tiers, right? We have Elizabeth, Sarah, right under that you've got Sky.
Yep.
Right? You know, these women like Elizabeth and Sarah travel. They go to other events. They're going to round robins. You know, they're competing on some of the biggest stages we have, East versus West, stuff like that. Right? Sky, if Dustin, you're still watching, Sky needs to pull more. We need to get Sky pulling more. And I get the weight issue, but we got to do something. Sky needs to pull more. She has an amazing talent, and I think at some point we're gonna have to go.
Well, to play devil's advocate on that front, that kind of goes into the Brian Shaw situation that you're talking about earlier. Definitely a different sort of a thing, but the way that you were talking about fostering the Brian Shaw entry into arm wrestling, there's the same kind of maybe potential thought going into Sky as well. So there's a level to that as well. But here's the thing too. Cards right, I think is super important.
Yes, it is, but at the same token, nothing's better than exposure.
Sure.
And sometimes you have to take some risks. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And, you know, I don't know. I mean, that's for them to decide, obviously. That
for sure.
You know, they've got their plan that they're sticking to, and you know, cool. I would like to see Sky pull more, and I hate to see, you know, maybe like 20 pounds be the difference of her pulling a match and not pulling a match, or, you know, trying to find the one woman in the United States that weighs 125 pounds, you know, which obviously is hard to do, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, pulling more, you know, and then you have our amateur, you know, females. We've got a few of them here in San Antonio. Well, actually between San Antonio, we've pretty much got all of them that are active at this point. Right.
Yep.
So San Antonio, we got Marie and we got Bernadette, you know, and then Austin Arsenal has Jessica. And is Estes been practicing lately? She's still coming out?
She's still in the know. I'll put it that way. She has not as much lately, but I know she's had a lot going on.
Okay.
She's very much still connected to us. So she hasn't she's dipped out or anything like that.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess the idea behind this was, look, if other women aren't going to come and support the events in Texas, and they're not going to come to Texas State to try to win $500, why am I trying so hard to give it out?
Sure.
To them, why am I trying so hard to provide an opportunity for other women that just aren't showing up?
Yeah.
Well, that may change too at some point in the future, right?
But it's not here. It's not now, and I don't.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, of course.
I think we're still in arm wrestling grand scheme. They were light years away from that happening.
Yeah.
So,
it's been very consistent with the TAL, so I can see why it would be a big deal for you guys to pull that away and have a conversation about it and talk about it. But logistically speaking, it's like we want the TAL to be here. And I know it's not.
And it will. And look, the reality of it all is, and I wish I had just as many women competing as I do the men.
We all do. All of us.
I mean, I really do. But the reality of it all is, and I don't mean this in a harsh way, and I hope it never happens. But if we just lost all the women today and they never showed up to another event, the unfortunate side is we wouldn't feel it.
It sucks.
On the business side of things and stuff like that. Promotionally, that would suck because you want to have a diverse crowd, right? You want to have women and men and children and teens and stuff like that. So it's horrible on that aspect. But when you put the pen to paper, if there were no women competing at all, most promotions would. I'd probably say all promotions would be 100% fine. And to Dustin's point, that could change. A year from now, could take 10 years from now.
I'm confident that it will.
It will. But what do we do till then, right?
What do we do till then?
What do we do to them? So my one idea is, rather than try to provide funds, for women that don't show up to the events anyway, if I've got the funds and that's what they're going to be allocated for, why not put that back into my active female arm wrestlers throughout the year?
Yep.
So why not try and help kind of in a sponsorship? Let's say you're a sponsored athlete, right? Let's just talk about it in that scheme of things, right? Why not try to help the Skies and the Maries and the Jessicas if they want to go, let's say, to another tournament? Why don't we cover the entry fees for them? If they want to, if they want a jersey made, or maybe they're going to travel to an event that's, let's say maybe they go to Florida and they're going to go to an event. Maybe we help them, with some travel expenses.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to run into any backlash from any of the women that we have. I think the women that we have here in Texas that compete in arm wrestling are just happy to be there, type of a deal. They're happy to be there. They're happy to improve. They're happy to get stronger. Like, they're there just like anybody else. I feel confident that we're going to see more in the future. But what does the TAL do right now? That makes sense. Well, what makes sense? You do what makes sense. And so, I don't see.
And look, everything's an evolution, right?
Nobody has the blueprint to what makes us a successful arm wrestling promotion / league. Like, it's uncharted territory.
Well, sure. And you essentially have to evolve with the times, right? So you have to go with the trends. You can set up, you set a basic model, which we've had a basic model from the get-go. But for me, the realization is that model may have to change. And we're seeing it now with like Texas State, right? So the conversation is that after we finish this rotation of Texas States, there's nothing in my mind that tells me any different that Texas State shouldn't be Central Texas from here on out after we finish the rotation.
Yep.
There's nothing in my mind that could persuade me to think any other way. Like, Texas State is supposed to be the pinnacle of the events here in Texas, right? That are thrown, and that is where you're going to get the most participation. Yes, Texas is big. It's going to leave some people out on the outskirts that are going to have to travel much further than some people. But when we talk about the biggest tournament of the year, it's got to be Texas State. And then when we have regionals in particular areas that are getting fairly close to Texas State numbers, then we have to kind of look at things and go, okay, what are we doing?
Evolve. Yeah. I think anybody, like, it just makes sense that that's the route. But
yeah,
I'm cautious saying that because, Austin Arsenal, Austin, I'm Central Texas.
Well, I'm talking, and I'm not saying it never rotates. Look, the best possible scenario is I find a badass venue that wants to host Texas State every year, and Texas State finds a home. And you just know that every year it's going to be it's going to be here. It's going to be during this time.
The Mecca.
And boom, it's done. That we're not there yet. We're, obviously we're still looking. So there may be a fluctuation between San Antonio, Austin, Dallas, Fort Worth, area. That I-35 corridor, Central Texas is where I believe it needs to sit.
Yeah, and I think for like families traveling, like let's say just like hypothetically speaking, like the Shanks family, huge family. Texas States, they're going to have a lot more to do coming into Central Texas, Hill Country area, Dallas area. There's a lot more. There's just a lot more, to do, and so there's a lot of upsides to it. I'm excited for it. I think it'll be.
San Antonio is a great place. People love to come to San Antonio. They stay downtown. They get the Riverwalk. You got the Alamo. Yep. It's a really good travel destination. It's a bit closer for like say some of our South Texas, Corpus Christi, and a few others down there in South Texas.
Those boys are traveling all the way across the state to compete at these tournaments. They are going everywhere. They're everywhere.
Yeah, we had a number of them in Lubbock.
Mm-hmm.
So
you talk about dedication to the sport. That is cool. Yep. Really cool to see.
No, the teams are pretty cool. That was probably we had probably the most teams signed up. And then for this one, it's like 5 or 6 teams. Really good showings by all the teams, really. That's the thing. You had San Antonio, Austin Arsenal, we had Wichita Falls, we had Bomb City Pullers, Hub City Pullers, Yoakum Armbenders.
Yep. Yep.
So yeah. As far as the team competition goes, that actually worked out really well.
Yeah, I've always really liked that addition. Again, probably another bias feeling or opinion, but I've always loved that addition to it because our team is, as I'm sure your guys' is, our team, the team aspect of arm wrestling for us is so vital and important to everybody on our team that having that being a part of the tournament is a really, really cool thing. A thing that we take very seriously. Take it very seriously and making sure that we score the most points and score, the best where we, as much as we can where we can.
Yeah. See, that's the cool thing about the team thing, right? Is that whoever your representative is, you have to look at who's there for your team. Relatively so what do you think the classes look like? And what arm and who do you want to put in each particular classes? So, if Sky would have put D Woody's left hand in, you guys would have won.
Yeah.
You guys would, we wouldn't have been tied. And then, we had there was some on our deal too, because we ended up putting Bernadette in there. Well, unfortunately, she didn't there wasn't anything there for her to pull on the amateur side. On the 155 plus, the only women we had were the 154 and under. So,
yeah, but it's all a matter of making the right decision there. Typically on any other day, Dustin would probably consider his left hand to be a sissy la type of hand.
Yeah.
I don't care about my left hand,
but it showed up.
Left hand doesn't matter.
Nobody cares about the left.
Yeah, you see my real feelings coming out. But no, that has changed.
Yeah,
quite dramatically. I have noticed, especially since Devin stopped his pumpkin training. Left hands becoming, more fun again.
Well, I mean, the thing about it too is, and also as well, like I'm thinking about making. Obviously, I'm probably not thinking about it. I'm probably actually going to do it. It is a team competition. Your people on your list need to be at least close enough to be practicing with you, right? So like the idea of
we talked about this a couple days ago at practice.
Yeah, like 10 guys come into the event and going, hey, let's form a team, and we're from 5 different cities.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a team competition. That's not a team,
mm-hmm.
Right? So
we put a second place trophy up on the shelf for that reason, just to piss us off. For that exact reason, make sure that we're all sharp and ready next time we show up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, it was just, the difference in that was just the difference of one person. One person. And one person could have done better. Like Ernie was in there 2 arms. I had both of his arms in the AMs, and one of them produced and one of them didn't. Like he just didn't do as good as the other one, so he didn't get any points on that one. If he'd have just gotten if he'd have gotten 4th place, 3 more points.
Yeah, keep rubbing it in, Billy, please. And I'm being for real, genuinely. Just keep rubbing it in. I hope Ernie hears this.
I'm going to.
That arm did not.
I am going to.
2, 1, 0.
Yes.
Hey,
look. Hey, it's not any hit on Ernie. Ernie did great. Ernie did great.
A hit on Ernie. It's most certainly.
No, don't be so hard on him. Did you put that? You put his face underneath that second place trophy? Did you?
Yeah, man.
But that's just. I mean, it just goes to show you got to be strategic. You got to think about it. Unfortunately,
it's a cool part of the game. It's a cool part of the tournament.
Yeah,
we really enjoy it. I know other people enjoy it. It's cool to see that kind of a turnout for it.
Well, it's like let's just say, for instance, like I kind of one of the differentials is like Michael Zamora is generally a 220 guy, but he came in heavy, right? And he's in the 242 class, so we had to split our arms. So he was only pulling one arm. If he was actually in the 220, you would have put his one arm in the 220, and then my right and my left, in the 242s, given the way the bracket was, because I was at a minimum, I was placing.
Okay, I have to stop everything because we didn't talk on the last podcast about Michael Zamora.
Okay. Let's talk about
it. Whoa. Was it Uncle John? No. It was Tucker Keating.
Tucker Keating. Yep.
I think that there was maybe a fault that happened in Tucker's mind that he thought that he had secured that pen. That's up for grabs. However, the bicep on Mr. Zamora bringing that sucker across the table, oh my goodness, that was a sight to behold.
Well, I loved it for Michael, but I will tell you that it kind of didn't surprise me because I don't have right now what it takes to beat Tucker.
Mm-hmm.
Like fresh, and I know what I need. I'm not my, I don't have that strength yet.
Mm-hmm.
But I know Michael in his left does.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what he used at that in that particular match, and it paid off, So
he's so cold after it too. Like he was just kind of like, "Yep, I just did it." And I'm like screaming, like, "No way that just happened!" No way.
Yeah. I mean,
Good for him, man. Good for him. Cool to see. I love seeing Michael Zamora succeed and do well, and he's awesome.
Yep. No, totally. It's like he's the guy that I basically hammer up against in practice. Because I don't have the inside game he does. He just smokes me there. So that gives me the ability to train basically with him on the table almost as hard as I want.
Yep. Yep.
Especially trying to train up my inside game. So, I've got that. I've got that wall to just slam against. So
yeah, we're seeing a good evolution into inside training with Austin Arsenal. Have been seeing it. Where we have, primarily smart people that pull outside, right? Like Hermes says. It's really, really becoming to a point where like we're getting some real dangerous people. It's not that we don't have dangerous people on our team, but I mean, just the term Arsenal is really coming to fruition. It's becoming a really cool thing to see. I have a video of a guy named Levante that showed up to practice, invited by Dustin DeWoody this last Sunday. He strict curled 205 pounds after practice, or not strict curl. It was a cheat curl sitting.
Oh, okay.
205 pounds after his first practice. 6'4", 255 pounds. Just like never arm wrestled before. An incredible athlete. Definitely think he's going to be back. Just really cool to see. Another guy, 76er that we had show up. Power. What is it? Not bodybuilding. Anyways, we had a 76er show up. Super crazy. There's another 76er that pulled up that we had come in that won Vice in Europe. Are you familiar with that tournament, Vice?
No.
It's an IFA something. Anyways, won Worlds, 20 years old, been arm wrestling for 12 years, he says. Anyways, really cool things, really, really cool things coming up here. Michael Zamora is amazing. Also, he was always trying to help the rest of the team get better. And that's what we were just talking about, right? So that team side of things and individual sport.
Yep. What else we got? We gotta have something else to talk about. What did Frank sent me a whole list of stuff, and we kind of just
let's talk about what Frank wants to talk about.
Yeah, Frank always got to be the center of the attention.
I didn't see any of the comments that he put on here.
Oh, he was, what is this one? Let's see.
He says, Billy, interesting. You're not a follower. Yeah, you knew which one I was going to go. Follow of the world level athletes and promotions, but you're probably very keen to USA promotion events and arm wrestling. When I talk to, quote, fans on Reddit and Facebook, all appear to have no idea who Robbie Russell is, but they all know the major Europeans. It's such an interesting pay-per-view.
Yeah.
It really is, actually. It's like a true East versus West almost. Yeah, we should talk about a little bit, maybe just kind of on the subject. We did kind of graze over it, but we should talk about the poll that Frank put up. I'll let you lead the conversation on that one.
So this stemmed from a discussion we had in our little group chat on, and Frank made a comment about it on the last live stream about there being about tournaments basically going to there being only one class, hypothetically, there's one class, like say the 198 class. When you come and you enter the 198 class, you are entered into one class with everybody that enters the 198 class.
Yep.
And then you were seeded top to bottom based on your ELO rating.
Yep.
And it would be a triple elimination, in his particular example. And
which seems at face value unfeasible. I should just point that out, just based on entries and time constraints. But anyway,
could make for a long day on particular events for sure. So the argument back and forth was, and like you and I were discussing prior to this, it was very much a promoter versus competitor mindset, right? Pretty much Corey Miller, Tim Talmadge, and myself lean one way, and Frank D. Woody and Trey Johnson kind of lead another way, and understandably so, given the type of people that they are and we are and stuff like that. But it would basically essentially it would eliminate classes distinction altogether, right? So there would be no more pro, there would be no more AM, there would be no more novice, there would be no more anything, right? You would just be whatever your ELO rating is, and you would fall in the bracket based on that, right?
Right.
So he put this poll up, and I don't know, the polls are kind of like, if it's not just a straight up pick, right, and you're asking a particular question about that, polls to me end up being like surveys, right? Yeah. They ask a very broad general question that lacks a little bit of context, sometimes a lot of context, and it asks you to give, it asks you to give an evaluation based on that. But most of the time, somebody can look at that and go, yeah, but what about all this other stuff? So can I answer yes for this? Can I answer no for that? I've done a lot of with my employer, they like to send out these surveys, and it's like, do you like your job? Well, generally speaking, I work for the railroad, right?
Right.
I'm a railroad conductor. Do I like to railroad? Yes. I love to railroad. I love to do the job that I actually do. Do I love my job as a whole? Do I love all the other aspects of it? Not at all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's how do I answer that question, right?
Yeah.
So, the questions are posed. Would you rather go to an event with X, or would you rather go to an event with Y?
Yeah.
Well, I could say as a puller, I would love to go to any event in any format, once, maybe twice, or something like that.
Yep.
But to change that up and say, hey, that's going to be the default from now on. Every tournament's going to be like that. Which one would you prefer? That's a different question.
That is a different question, but is that what he was asking? I want to be clear on that. I don't think that he was saying, and I think that it warrants conversation for sure. I think it's definitely a thing to be talked about. But I also see where you're coming from. I don't think that I don't know, but I'm asking you. I don't think that he was saying that would be, or that should be, the default.
Oh no, and he's in the chat. He can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the way he wants the competition to be.
Okay, so he's saying that he wants that to be a default.
Well, now he's kind of changed his mind. He? Yeah, a little bit on the tier base. So I agree with the seeding thing. I think that, like what we talked about earlier, I think that could really make for really good competition, right? You take the class, whether it be an open or pro class, whatever you call it, and you seed that based on rating, but you still have your lower tier, or what you consider to be amateur tier, and you seed that based on rating.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So I'm all on board with that. You know, but lumping everybody into a single bracket, what you would consider AMs and novices versus open and pro, and then you come down to the end of it. Well, I just think from a business standpoint and a promoter standpoint that I'm going to push the bottom, say 40% of my arm wrestlers out of my market.
Yeah, I see that, but I also, the triple elimination, it does create more table time. Let it be known that I'm fully accepting of the tier division plus seeding and keep it regular double elimination. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Let it be known that was after a lot of discussion.
But I think that it definitely warrants conversation. Am Pro defined by a rating.
Yeah.
And then seed within the bracket. Yeah. It's so difficult, though, because it's like, as an amateur going into that tournament, it's like, I don't know, just the idea of knowing that you're going into the amateur division and not knowing any of the other pullers is like, it's a safe space. It's 2024. Safe spaces are important.
Well, I mean, here's the thing too. There are particular reasons why, I mean, on all different levels, why we have a differentiation between the classes, right? So one of the things that we like Dustin Laughlin and myself, here with San Antonio, is we like to look at our pullers before they decide to enter into an open bracket, that they at a minimum can pull safely, or they know how to defend themselves, right?
Yep.
Because you can't expect completely. You can hope that I can walk up to the table, which I did. Like in Texas State, we had a team with the Yoakum Armbenders, 14 years old, 326 pounds, right? Like 6 foot, over 6 foot tall. Right?
Yeah,
I can't put him with any of my other teams.
Mm-hmm.
There was no place for him, so I went and talked to the dad and said, "Hey, look, let's throw him into the amateur division. I know he had never pulled before. He's got 3 months of training. When he comes up to the table, let me go up there. Let me talk to the other pullers and just say, hey, look, I'm not saying take it easy. I'm not saying lay down. Just be safe." Right?
Yep.
And, that's about all you can expect. I'm not going to expect them to lay down to him or anything like that. But if this kid hits and he turns his chest completely out, don't blow through his shoulder. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At least hold him, we'll call attention to the ref. The ref will correct it or stop the match, and we go from there. So that's basically the premise. And that's what we did. And he got a couple pulls in and, and stuff like that. But, if you in a one bracket scenario, right, the amateur puller is good until they're not, right? Mm-hmm. Until they hit that upper level ELO, right? Now where they're really getting into competition that's above their range.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and there's a level at which I have not been in this sport for a crazy amount of time, but I have been in this sport long enough to see there's a difference in the newcomers that show up to practice to learn how to do the sport now than there was when I started. And so eventually that cog has got to turn where you just got to be able to throw these guys in. They're showing up and they've been watching this on YouTube, and no, they haven't been on a table that much, but they've been watching this on YouTube, and training for it and doing all of these specific movements. And they're seeing enough videos now where nobody wants to break their humerus bone. Nobody wants that. And these people that are showing up, I remember when I first started, I was terrified. I'm like, these guys they're going to be so strong. They're going to break my arm. And that just isn't the case. It isn't the case. The injury side of it wasn't. Everybody in this community kind of has the same idea. The first thing that we want you to do is be safe.
Well, it's not
to get there.
But the problem is, it's when you go up against a new guy, Trey, there's only so much you can do. The rest of it, they do themselves. Yep. And this is why the refs are so important when it comes to those lower level guys. So let's not even talk about once you start blending, a class like that, then it's hard to differentiate the lower level guys from the upper level guys at some point from a ref, because all he sees is two people coming up to the stage for next match. Right.
Hmm.
So,
there's the concern with, you put lower level guys against lower level guys. I would almost prefer to see a lower level guy going up against a pro guy as far as safety concerns go. I feel like the concern would be more against two guys that, they don't know a whole lot, and they start getting in weird positions because they got a chance at winning and they're going to do whatever it takes to win. other than just getting smacked by, somebody that got seeded with them that is a higher seed than them or whatever. But
so
it's up for conversation for sure.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of things we could put, but I want to address what Frank just said right now. So I disagree with this.
A single bracket apparently doesn't work just because the event would lose tractions because amateurs won't show up because they can't get a medal. I think that shows a huge lack of competitiveness.
I think that this is a very oversimplified and disingenuous comment.
Now, single bracket apparently doesn't work just because the event would lose traction because amateurs won't show up because they can't get a medal.
And here's my counter to this. All right. Do we have some medal chasers? Sure. We got some people that want to stay in the AMs a little too long, and what we consider to be AMs right now, right? We have some people that want to hang out a little too long because they love getting that award at the end of the event and stuff like that. I think most AMs, and this is what I said, when you remove the goalpost, you don't give anybody anything that they can see to work towards, right? And you and I talked at the beginning of this podcast about
that. That's a good point that you made too.
All right. So I think most AMs are extremely competitive, within their own deal. And their motivation is to be at the top of the AMs before the transition because they know that there's a reset coming.
That's me. That's what I do.
Yeah, they that there's a reset coming, that once you get to the top, right? Now it's like, I've made it. I've accomplished it. Okay, cool. Now we're going back into the pit again that I've got to climb out of because now I'm going in this open class, right? I know I'm going to start from the bottom again. So, it's like the award is just the caveat at the end for most of these guys, right? If there was no award at the end of it, I think they would still come in with the idea that they want to place first, second, or third in the event, right? They want to be at the top of the category.
Yep.
Right. The award is just the caveat at the end of the day for the placing, But when you remove that, where does motivation go? Right. You seed me into a bracket that I have no chance of winning anytime soon, unless just nobody shows up. Right. Where does my motivation go? There's no end in sight for me. There's no milestones. Right. And I know Frank's going to counter with, well, your milestones are within the ELO and you're beating people, da-da-da-da-da. That's all fine and dandy, but the level of the competition is not there yet.
And just to be clear, what we're talking about is changing the default from a double elimination amateur pro tournament into a triple elimination seeded, ELO seeded tournament open completely.
That's what was proposed initially.
It's not an end all be all in either situation. It's still a double elimination. It's really what this is. It's just a conversation about changing the default of the double elimination amateur pro tournament style into an open division seeded tournament, triple elimination. So I just want to add context to that. It's not an end all be all anywhere. It's just opening up the conversation to what does that look like if you do change it.
Yeah. Well, I'll take two examples, and I used one with you already, and I'll use one from like a guy on my team, right? So Ben Rodriguez, second tournament ever, right? I think he pulled in San Antonio, and then he pulled Texas State. 14-man bracket, takes first place right-handed. Right. The reality is, this is where we're at now. He comes to next practice. He's motivated. He's excited. He's talking about whether or not he wants to drop down into 242s or stay supers. He's talking about dipping his toe already on his own into the open class, maybe one more event, amateur, and then fully going, open class only. He's excited. All right. Take the hypothetical, right, that's being proposed, and you throw him into that same bracket with Tony Thomason, Uncle John, Tucker Keating, all these guys.
Mm-hmm.
You think he's as excited anymore?
Probably not. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, without a doubt, he's not excited anymore because he knows that he can't even, at this point, he knows, and this is not shade or anything like that. He is not competitive with those guys, even in the same room right now.
Yeah.
So his ability to progress through the class that he has been eliminated. And now he's got this huge ceiling that appears to be for him unobtainable at this point, and which in a lot of reality is, for a long time. Take Jessica and Marie. All right. Jessica and Marie came. Now Marie entered the open class, and all that. And they did that they did that as extra, but I would beg to argue that both women were going there looking to place well and win that amateur class at that Texas State. You know what I mean?
And that's kind of what you want to foster that, no matter how big the class is or how many.
Yeah,
you want.
So now take that in the hypothetical, and we throw those two women into the class with Sky.
Mm-hmm.
Both of those women, they know at this point they're at least not getting first place.
Not if they're me. I'm delusional. I'm delusional. Like, what if?
That's
What if?
So, and then, okay, so that's just my thing from like what I'm looking at it from a competitor standpoint and participation.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, you look at it from a promoter standpoint, and depending upon your model and your budget and everything and how you run everything, that sort of model hurts your pocketbook. So that's kind of the thing. If let's hypothetically say that 2024 TAL schedule was that model all year long. If I sit down and crunch the numbers, I would bet you that D Woody doesn't walk away with $1,000 and Trey doesn't walk away with 500.
Mm-hmm.
Like the money just won't be there, right? There's almost no way to double class. People aren't going to be double class and the bracket's going to be too big. You won't have those extra entries for amateur and then guys dabble in the open. So from a money budget standpoint, it's a killer. Especially if you're looking to like have every event move forward and then like TAL does have this, big budget payout at the end of the year.
Yeah. Well, I will say this as a fan of the sport, a huge fan of the sport, a lover of the sport, a lover of the Texas Arm Wrestling League, so on and so forth. I would love to see a giant tournament in this format. I would not love to see, I feel pretty confident in this now, that be the permanent fixture for the tournament. After having this conversation, I don't want that to be the permanent fixture.
Yeah.
But I would love to see a giant tournament in that sort of format. I think that it would be incredible fun.
No doubt. And I'm not against the format. I'm just the same thing as yours. I'm not against the format from a 1 or 2 event, standard here and there, a one-off event. What I would be against would be the format as the default for all events, and I just don't. I don't think that grows anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think, Dustin?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
he says neutral. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Let's see what we got here. Carlos. Yeah. I mean, we don't have anything set as far as super matches, but if you want to call somebody out and you want to come, we'll have table, platform, refs ready to facilitate any of those matches that anybody wants to have.
Left or right, both 176 pounds. Well,
there was a challenge from old Mr. Schaefer there at one point that never did come to fruition. So
yeah, I think that one might have left the building. I don't know. I have reattempted, but he's had a lot of stuff going on, so maybe he would. Maybe he would be interested in it. But I'm open. 176, so I will be there at the end of the year bash. 176 pounds. Oh man, let's go.
Yeah. So Trey, the same could be said for making someone go into the Open after winning 3 events. Well, the point is that on that one is that they may not be ready for the Open class yet, but they're too good for the amateur class. That's the whole point of the standard of 3 events and all that kind of stuff. You can't have guys in the AMs walking through AMs just and not be in the Open just because they're not quite good enough. At some point, there's going to be a transition, right? And like we just said earlier, the reset. There's going to be a reset, right?
Yeah, that was one of the worst feelings I had at the East versus West. I was not happy winning right-handed because I competed at that tournament, left-hand pro, lost 0-2. I talked about it on the last podcast. Went 0-2 on the left hand, and then I went like 7-0 on the right hand in amateurs. And I felt awful.
Well,
I did not.
At that point, it took that in order for you to get there.
For sure. Yeah, it was a great transition for me to move into something that was really scary. I'm not a Trey Johnson. Trey Johnson is a born-bred killer, competitor since he was a baby. I'm not that. I fell in love with arm wrestling. Here I am going full force into it like any other person. And so, that transition for me was a good thing. It ended up being a good thing. That, like you said, that is what I needed in order to make that move into the next step. And it was a good thing. It was a really good thing. I think it has been for a lot of people. But you see the outliers, bodybuilding, arm wrestler looking sons of guns that are competing in AMs and have been there for some people for 5+ years. And it's like, maybe you haven't won an amateur tournament yet. Maybe you haven't won yet, but like if you're not improving, maybe the move for you after 5 years is just to go into the pro division. You just need to make that move and pull with stronger people so that maybe you feel something different and figure something out that elevates you.
Here's the thing too, though. I mean, I probably would agree with that if the person is, like, say, very consistent with arm wrestling, just for some reason has a very, very slow progression, right? But we also have hobby pullers, right?
Yep.
I mean, we got the people that come to practice and that love arm wrestling, but are just really not that interested in competing or compete like very little, right? So let's just look, I'm trying my damnedest to get him to compete because I think he'd do well. Alvin Dunn.
Yep.
Loves arm wrestling, practices, like crazy, right? But just for some reason hadn't built up the confidence or whatever like that to compete yet. And trust me, Dustin and I have been trying to get him to do it.
Yeah.
Right. But he just hasn't.
After last weekend, it won't be long.
Yeah. So he just hasn't yet. But let's just say he does start. And maybe he just pulls at the San Antonio event. So, does he ever progress out of the AMs? He might not. And that might be okay. As long as he's not at a point where he's just blowing through amateur classes on a regular basis, But if he's not competing, but every so often, we probably won't see that anyway. So, I think it's a moving scale. You really have to take it.
It really is. I guess I never really put that kind of thought into it, but you've got to have your Tim Lewis's of the world. You got to have your gatekeepers, as you call it. And that might be okay for those people and amateur. Yeah. I want to think that everybody's trying to be the best and the strongest, and that might not be the case. I just, they're like you said, they're hobby pullers. Sarah says, so if I'm understanding this correctly, the idea is to have one seated class combined with open and AMs. How does that format benefit the pullers? Well, that has been quite the topic that we've been going over. At face value, it doesn't look like it benefits the AMs at all, but maybe open, maybe.
Or what you would consider the low. That's the thing. Once you start getting into this ELO thing, you really have to drop the labels, right? Because then it gets kind of weird what you consider AMs, open, and you start playing these word games, right? So if you seed everything and it's all one big class, your lower tiers are almost, they're at a complete disadvantage in the long run of placing or doing what they consider to be well in that tournament, and depending upon their mindset. And this is where I think the biggest distinction comes between like talking to like Frank and Dustin and Trey is that they're such hardcore competitors that for them, there's no other way. Like that is the way.
Yeah.
And I understand that. But the reality is that not everybody's like them.
Yeah.
We have many pullers on varying degrees across the whole board.
Yeah, and I think from their mindset though too, and I'm going to jump around here, but I think from their mindset part of it is that, that maybe the sport isn't for the faint-hearted. It's not it's not for everybody type of a deal, and they want this to be the highest level. They are really pushing, and I know they're pushing for this sport to be, a real combat sport, a real physical combat sport. And it's not, it might not be for everybody type of a deal. So I kind of,
that,
you don't kick everybody out, that's not the point. It's not like that. It's just.
But I was talking to Frank the other day, right? We were talking about this after he had a conversation with Corey and stuff like that. And then like he brought up jiu-jitsu, right? And they have belt levels, right?
Right.
And I don't know the belt levels, but let's hypothetically say white belts are the lowest level, okay, right? And let's say brown belts are the highest level. You never get it. There's never a tournament where you have a white belt going against a brown belt.
Like I hope that you're speaking correctly, because you're going to get corrected the shit.
Well, this is what I asked. I mean, look, I don't know anything about jiu-jitsu, but I asked Frank, like, how does the tournament go?
Yeah.
Right. When these belts walk up and they enter the tournament, how do they enter it? Do they enter it with everybody? Do they enter it with their own belt colors? Mm-hmm. Do they enter it? How does that? Is there at any point in that competition, does the winner of that lowest belt go against the winner of the highest belt? And just in a rough thing, white belts wouldn't typically go against the highest ones.
Sure.
And there's a good reason for that. And that's a combat sport, right? That's fighting.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, that's just the example that every sport has a place for everybody at every level.
Yeah, and I think that kind of tags into what the triple elimination side of things is. And so it's like the lowest rated pullers are going to get phased out the most at the beginning initially. But the seeding should offer, a pro would offer breakout opportunities for lower seeded athletes against higher tiered athletes, which will happen. There we go. Trey would know. You absolutely couldn't. Some tournaments have a black belt or a brown versus lower belts. And
here's the next comment.
Not in the most prestigious IBJJF. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So it could happen. Theoretically, it could happen, but I would say, is that the standard, right? Like, right. I don't think that's the standard where you're putting the lowest level guys up against the top level guys on a consistent basis.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
you're going to break it down in a triple elimination competition to a few different brackets, or like 3 different brackets. You have your winner's bracket and 2 losers brackets, right? Is kind of how that would work. And so the seeding should eventually work itself out into where you're getting paired or placed against people that are more at your tier, right?
Sure.
And then so with the additional losers bracket, maybe initially, but as somebody like me getting the opportunity to pull against a Dustin Hyatt of the world, it's like, I know I'm pretty confident on how that one's going to end up, but getting the opportunity to pull him at the beginning is great. That's an awesome opportunity for me. Not for everybody. I'm at a different level than some other people, amateurs and that sort of thing. But I think you could say the same for everybody. You would have an additional losers bracket, and everything would kind of even itself out. Which, in the end, I think, I don't know. I don't know. You would know more than me. You went to the Oklahoma tournament where they ran this sort of thing. It seemed like
that was the thing, though. You knew you were only entering one class, right?
Right.
And you knew it was for that particular event.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the kicker too, right? If it's a one-off, and if we decide to, and like what we talked about earlier with the schedule coming up over the next couple of years, if we decide to say do this type of format, which I think could be very interesting for a one-off, then everybody knows, hey, this is a one-off a tournament where these are the stipulations, right? So, but I have the rest of the year to compete regularly.
The
standard format, and this is just kind of like a one-off, like interesting deal that I can get into just to kind of see where what happens, whatever, that's fine, because at the end of the day, we're not abandoning the true model, and this is just like an extra thing.
Yep. Yeah. I don't know. It sounds fun. I hope to see. I want to see more of it. I got to watch some of that tournament. I'm dead.
His ears are burning. They're burning bad.
Yeah. Triple win guy.
Here we go. Get ready, Bill. I hope you all have your coffee.
Hey, this conversation has been going on for 3 days already. So.
What up, Frank? I'm glad to see you.
What say you, Frank?
How are y'all doing? You're doing good?
Oh, yeah.
Doing great.
First of all, I can just trust everyone in the chat's training. We're all doing our pronation or Devon lifts, right? We're all staying sharp.
Yeah, I got to sit down for this.
I don't have anything crazy to say. First of all, I need to make sure I'm coming through the right microphone.
It doesn't sound like it, but maybe it's just because you have that screen that it sounds a little muffled.
Let's see. Audio. Yeah, see, you're right. It's the wrong one. See?
There we go.
That's way better.
Yeah, good. See?
If I start pulling tournaments, will I automatically be put on the Texas rankings, or I just have to be anyone in the ranking by Supermatch? The latter. So
yeah, we're not automatically adding names to them anymore. So in order to get on it, the tournaments are completely separate from the rankings because they're super match based. And in order to get on it, you would just challenge somebody to a super match. If you win, then your name gets added.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just because we did that for a while. And, you have the one guy that shows up, he kind of gets into it, right? Oh, I'm gung-ho, put me on the rankings, and then we never see him again. So, in order to get
are really fun, you will automatically be placed on the Aries Texas ranking list. So you will be ranked in Texas.
Rated.
Yeah. Let's not get crazy. Don't get crazy, Trayton.
Yeah.
You're going to start a whole nother mess right there.
Well, we've had a lot of discussions about this at practices about.
Yeah. It seems that there is a huge divide between some guys who come from an era of gaming and competitiveness and putting numbers behind things who love it. They there's guys who look like, oh, I made 1,700. Or I'm looking at this guy he's a 15-10 and he's 10-10. Like, I'd smoke this guy. I don't even need to look, because like they've gamified the numbers and everything. I don't like people who have been pulling for an Uber for over a year, still pulling amateur. It is not good. Pulling over a year. Should I address this or can I just keep going on my rant?
You can keep going. You don't have to.
Okay, yeah, because there's lifetime amateurs, but it depends on what you want to call amateur, right? Like, are they an amateur in the sake of they're probably not in the money for a pro? Sure. Are they an amateur as in they're new to the sport? No. Like, there's lifetime amateurs though, right? Like, there's guys who are going to forever pull amateur because that's just where they are. And they know that. And, it's fine. It's fine.
Well, but here's the thing, so, I mean, what we've been talking a lot about errors is, I mean, eventually could solve that whole issue, right? Because there won't be necessarily an AMS. You'll have a particular
you just
rating.
pull in the tier 2, whatever tier 2
so
is.
Somebody could have a horrible record that would keep them in a lower tier for a very long time.
Sure. Yeah. If you're chronically going 2-2 in every amateur event you enter, and you've entered 10 of them, I would argue you still get to enter it. Yeah. Where was I going though? Oh, people gamifying Aries. Aries is the way. See, so I'll use that guy. That guy likes it. M-I-N-A-M for yes, Todd. I was thinking of you. I wasn't gonna say it, but I was thinking of you.
Hey, Todd did good in the Amarillo event, so he every now and then he can squeak through and get some airs points for sure. So he hits enough of those. He may be climbing the airs rating ladder.
Where was I going with this? Oh, people gamifying it. And then there's other people who they look at it like a rankings, like they compare. I love you too. They compare it to what they think a rankings should be, and they kind of just shit on it right away. They get upset because they go, "Oh, Dustin Laughlin's ranked higher than Billy Ortega's. Well, that's not right. Ayers is dumb." And they just like zoomed into this one thing, and it's like, okay, let's say that matchup. Well, first of all, do they both have enough matches supporting their rating that it even makes sense? I would argue that you don't even really want to consider it what I would call a vetted rating until you have like 15 matches. Like after 15 matches against different opponents, it's like, okay, you probably have a vetted rating. You're zoning in on where you should be seated, based off of a rating or something. But if you look at it based off of like the other day, we had an argument with Simon Barachoa last year. This is great. He's seems like a bit of a numbers guy. Seems he can be pretty professional. And he said that it was inaccurate because he could beat like the 5 or 10 guys above him in Aries and this and that. And I said, okay, let's zoom into your weight class. Let's assume that you're right. Let's assume there's 10 mistakes. Like there's 10 insertions and removals in the 176 or the 154 right-hand class. There's over 3,000 people rated in that class. So if we're looking at a percentage error, what are we talking about here? Like, and like, and we don't have to speak in absolutes. Let's just speak in averages. On average, if I grab a guy with this rating over here, someone who's like a 1410, and I grab a guy from over here who's a 1510, on average, is that 1510 guy probably better than that 1410 guy? I will bet my life on it. Like, not even a question. Sorry, guys, I had to go and clearly missed a lot. No. The party just began. And so, anyways, it's like if you want to look at it as a rankings, I don't like. It's not a rankings. You can't use it as a true blue ranking. Way to know if someone's better than someone else is they pulled a super match best 3 out of 5 minutes ago, and then those are your results. Anything else, you're only as strong as your latest performance. That is, how I think a lot of people view the sport. A lot of combat sports are like that, right? You're only as good as your most recent performance.
Yeah.
But I love the fact that I'm hearing more and more in circles, not even my circle, but just circles like the Oklahoma guys and some guys on the East Coast who are looking at Aries for matchups. They're like, oh, that guy has this rank. Like he has this, they look at like he's 10-10. I'm 10-10. We're both equally rated. We've both gone against similar guys, but we've never pulled. Maybe that's a match. I'm hearing this happening in these circles, and my heart is pounding out of my chest with joy because that is what it's for. It's not meant to just be like, without a shadow of a doubt, is Billy better than Frank? It's about.
Can I ask you, Frank, have you done a side-by-side comparison of the current Texas arm wrestling rankings with the ratings?
So there's a problem with that, and that just has to do with the fact that the Texas arm wrestling rankings themselves are
super match only.
Not even that. Like, they're just wildly out of date and not wildly accurate.
Sure. But
right now, where do you rank Ronnie Morales?
He's number 1.
Where? What weight class?
In the rankings.
What weight class?
198.
Okay. When's the last time Ronnie was 198?
It's a big boy.
I mean, that's like saying the North American rankings are the same thing. It's like, guys.
I'm going to. I'll say it from deep in my lungs.
That's not a rankings problem. That's a puller problem.
Fair. I think it's fair. You don't think it's fair?
Get the duct tape. Get the duct tape.
I think that.
We'll spit it out. Jeez.
Rankings don't really matter. And they're so, like, anybody, like Billy or
like
right now,
Billy doesn't matter.
Billy, the ELO does matter because it's directly correlates to exactly how much you've been pulling and where you've been pulling. Let's say Billy, for example, you say at 220, you're the top 2 guys in Texas. And I would say, Billy, when have you ever made 220? And you'd say, last year I made 220. And then I would go to Aries and I would say, Billy, I see you have 62 matches in the 242 and you have 4 at the 220 weight class.
Yep.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say, unless there's big money on the line and a big name match, you're a 242 puller. So how do I just do you get to just say well, I pull one time a year at 220 and I go against a good guy, or maybe not at all. Maybe I just pull once a year at 220. Does that maintain your 220 status?
Well,
or
that's kind of the current standard, isn't it?
That's the current standard. I disagree with it. I hate that. I think the real 220 guys are the guys who are going around. They're 220 all year round, going to big events, making a name for themselves.
You see, I don't know my kilos. What is it? But Devin Larrett, this last one, we were just talking about it.
Yep.
And when's the last time that he's pulled in that class? However, it was a murder scene. And he's not active in that class, but it's just like, hey, I'm pulling up. I'm like 2 weight divisions. Mm-hmm. And so there is an argument for what they're doing at the highest level. It just is what it is. But I also see the activity side of things where it's like you're not even
class. That's the thing I guess I'm trying to capture. Like, for example, I talked about this on the last live for you guys, but we're doing a Iron Heart Award and all these different little badges for Aries that encompass people who encapsulate Aries core values. The guys and gals who are going out, they're pulling everybody, they're traveling, they're doing all these things. They're winning. Maybe they're not the number 1 in the USA, but they're doing well. And we want to award those people, award the middle of the guy pack. Each year you need to climb your way back or defend your spot. You shouldn't just carry over.
Trey's advocating for a yearly reset.
He's advocating for a ladder system. So a lot of games have a ladder system where every year it resets and basically everyone races each other through the ladder.
Well, that could work if you did it. Let's hypothetically say that could probably work if you did say top 10 only tournament results. Yeah, every year you could technically reset that and say, hey, look, Texas rankings are based off the 5 events a year that TAL hosts or whatever like that. Are affiliated with.
The only problem with that, because I'm on board, I would be down to participate and be a part of it, is where do you put Dimitri Kachan?
He actually isn't there.
Yeah, he's not there. He doesn't compete. But so if someone calls you up, Billy, hey, I'm trying to put together a match. I'm looking at y'all's rankings, 242. It says so-and-so's the best guy. So should I reach out to him for y'all's best 242 guy in Texas? You'd go, let me call Dimitri.
Well, this is that. Look, so I think we all acknowledge, just like we've been talking a lot about levels, right? I think we can all acknowledge that even on the ratings, ranking conversation, that there are levels that people care about, right? So there are a particular subset of pullers that really care about state rankings. And that could be because they don't like to travel. That could be because they're on the lower tier and they just feel like, this is a climb for them. This is something, like I say, goal-oriented, right? They can see the finish line and where they want to get to. It's just not out there in oblivion and they haven't found it yet. And then you have your guys that are like at the top. Like I had this conversation with Robbie Burnett, and the back and forth he had with Nick Adams and stuff like that. And I told him, I was like, really, Robbie? Right-handed? Why are you even concerned with state rankings? Like, if anything, you're concerned with national rankings. If not higher than that, you should be, right? Like,
yeah, and I thought you were about to give me a hot take, and I was preparing a rebuttal, but I endorse everything you just said. So
sure,
we're on the same page right now.
Finally,
No, I feel
I love
like
the back and forth. By the way, I love it.
No, there's just a degree of we've talked about this before. It's like everyone cares about state rankings, in my opinion. People care about teams and this team versus that team, or state rankings or something. And as soon as you graduate from the state level, and I feel like you don't even have to fully, and I'll use myself as an example. I don't think I'm the number one in Texas. Yes, what Billy just said.
Just want to put that out there.
Yeah. Okay. It's like just high five in the crowd.
Yeah.
But after going to other big state events, I'm definitely more interested in pulling out of state competition as often as I can, because we all like a new look and feel. Do I want to go pull the same 5 guys in Texas every year at 220? I have been. And I have the data to prove it. Ronnie Morales has beaten me 12 times. Rodney's beaten me 7.
Ronnie's beaten everybody 12 times.
Every single one.
Well, it's like I'm just within that. I'm within the I'm within slapping distance of Ronnie, so he just gets it. I'm just in the way.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with that. Like, that's fine. But it's so fun for me to go to Winter Blast and grip up with 8s, 220s that I've never, and I don't know where I stand. Like, how good am I? They'll ask me. This is the best thing I've ever done for you, Billy, is I've told someone, like, I might be top 10 in Texas, and then I go place top 3 in their state event. It is the best thing I've ever given Texas. You're so welcome.
Yes, sir.
They're like, you're number 10? I'm like, maybe, bro. We got killers in Texas. They're like, who? And I give them a name. They're like, I've never heard of those guys. I was like, well, just know they're all better than me and I'm better than you. So that's just know you don't want nothing to do with them. Okay. Like, but there's a lot of people like that who are just, they stay in their home area. And when I get to travel, like, also, I'm probably more successful outside of Texas than I am in Texas, just because the pool of active 220 guys in Texas happen to be a really strong batch of people. And what am I going to do? Am I going to go press Ryan Carter or Anthony Lowe or any of these guys? I threw my hat in that round robin and did what I could with what I had.
Yeah. But look, you don't have to be at the top of the rankings to like mentally, push yourself out of like the,
I cared.
Extent
just to know who's who. It's important
to
me just because that's me. I'm competitive. I want to know who's who. Is that guy better than that guy? How would I do? Like, we all have that mentality, I think, and I hope. But
you like the hope, yeah.
Well, it's just like, you just said, take Anthony Lowe, for instance. When it comes to 220, he's definitely number 1 or number 2.
When he's 220.
When he's 220, yeah.
Yep.
So, but he knows that, he's only making 220 for very, very, very particular events, right? And most of them, 100%, are not going to be in Texas, right?
Sure.
And then just the way it is. Now, he'll come pull Texas at a 242, or a super heavyweight, or stuff like that. But he's gotten to the point where the state rankings don't mean as much to him You know, so it's not a big deal for him to be number 1 in 220, even though he might actually be there. And he understands that I think he understands that in order to maintain that ranking, he would have to relatively maintain 220, which he doesn't want to do. So, he's like the perfect example of somebody that, hey, take me off the 220s. I'm only going to be 220, maybe once a year, if that, and put me in the 243 plus, and I'll just pull 242, 243 whenever I, come to an event here in Texas.
Yep. I don't know if I finished. I had a complete thought a moment ago. I was really running with the flag, and I forgot what I was going to say. I may be at the top of the 198. I have won the title at the Premier Texas events 3 years in a row. Right.
We talked about that the other day.
Yeah, but never has pulled Ronnie in a tournament.
That's okay.
Yeah, well, I'm endorsing it. Like, I think you're only as good as your most recent performance, and as of most recently, Dustin DeWoody has won 3 times in a row at 198.
Yep.
So he's the guy who's consistently making 198. It matters to him. He's earned it. Yep. So if someone and he's 100% on the list when someone asks me who's the best at X weight in Texas, I'll say Dustin.
And look, Ronnie could send me a message today and say, "Hey, look, I don't plan on doing 198, anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I just haven't got that message yet."
Mm-hmm.
So,
well,
I get it.
Everybody else has got that message.
Yeah,
except for you.
I was on a tangent about competing outside of state and having, looking more than just your state stuff. I mean, I don't know how to. I think in Texas, it's probably not as big of a deal. Like, I'm in a very specific scenario because I have the luxury of being having opportunity to compete outside of state frequently. Also, I have the luxury of just having the 220s in Texas, which is, like I said, kind of rough, Not that I'm running from it. It's just, it's fun to go grip up with 30 different people. But he has not made weight in 3 years. Yes, 3 years. There's $1.99 shoot for that. It was like he said 3 years, and he was like 3 years.
And look, hold on. Let me segue into this part of the conversation because I have it written down and we haven't talked about it yet.
We have stuff written down.
Well, we talked about a lot of it. You're late to the party.
No, I'm not late. I was just a little busy. But
all right. So, look, the rankings are just like anything else, right? I think there's an evolution to everything. We started with, A, and, we're going to have to work our way to Z, right? So we started with A. It was, okay, hey, look, super match based, you're on the rankings. There's no requirement for anything other than you just defend your rank at the weight you have, whatever. All right. Last year, I said, you know what? We got too many people not even pulling events. So not alone super matches, like they're not even pulling in anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to do an activity rule.
Yep.
Right. And then, so, come January 1, I plan on rolling out the year activity rule. All right. And an evolution to that, after we clean up the rankings again, might be, hey, you have to compete at least once a year in the rank, in the class, in the rank that you hold. Right. So look, and I personally don't care. I mean, it's when it comes to state rankings, it's like, okay, somebody holds 2 rankings. Well, when we get to that point, it might have to be like, look, if you hold that 198 ranking, you at least have to be active in that 198 at one point. Even if you pull 220 all the year, one event, you need to figure out how you need to make 198. Because if you don't, then you stand to lose that ranking. So there's an evolution, I think, to this that we'll get there.
Yeah. I wanted to throw out one thing as well, what we're going to do with Legendary Balcony. with All Show Originals, with the photos that we're taking at all of the events for Texas Arm Wrestling League. We will be donating 50% of all of the proceeds to the final event of the year, the state championship. So if you purchase pictures, prints, whatever from us at All Show Originals, half of that money is going to be taken and donated to the winners of the state championship in 2025. And we're hoping that it'll be a double incentive to promote yourself, promote the league, promote arm wrestling. That's kind of what the idea is there. Super excited about it, and hoping that we can get some really bomb ass payouts for the end of year, final year in Lubbock, outside of Central Texas, as we know right now. El Paso, sorry. So super excited about that. Hopefully that becomes a really, really cool thing. We appreciate everybody's support thus far. It's held itself up. It's been not massively successful, but it's been successful, and people like it. And so we hope to keep doing it.
Well, I mean, this is kind of the weird thing, right? And I don't know what, Dustin, you're going to have to explain what you're losing your mind over. Where are we at? But so this is the thing too. I don't know if, I mean, people love pictures of themselves. So it's kind of crazy that, and we're going to do this anyway, right? I love having the aspect of a professional photographer, being in the crowd, taking stills and stuff like that. They're high quality. You can, they're picture quality. You can blow them up. You can do all these kind of things. And the fact that, I think a lot of people haven't taken more advantage of it. I just wish they would, because, I used to take video captures and post a whole bunch of video.
Everybody loves looking at themselves.
And everybody loved those, right? And they were relatively low quality. You couldn't really do anything with them as far as printing them up. They would get, very pixelated because they were being taken from video. But now we have a professional photographer up there taking stills that are high quality that you can get blown up and printed out and put up in your garage, your gym, or whatever. And it seems like, I don't know. I hope people,
just digital, so that you can have for your social media. But nevertheless, the whole idea is to support the TAL and arm wrestling anyways. That's what it's for. And to support the pullers and to give you something. So hopefully it'll be a double incentive. We really want to just kind of foster the payout system and try to help improve and build on that. And hopefully have a big year for El Paso. That's kind of the idea there. So looking forward to it. I am going to go eat some supper. I just wanted to share that. So
all right. Well, that's awesome. We, TAL and everybody appreciates that. And
we love being there. We love doing it. I literally love I get front row seats. I love being behind the camera. It's one of my most favorite things to do. So, so thanks for having us.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Just so you know, my mom bought some of those, and
she did indeed.
She did indeed. Yeah. Like all of a sudden, she just sent me a picture of pictures on her desk, and I was like, "Is that me?
That's my boy. That's my boy right there."
That's her. That's her 100%.
But that's what it's for. And they'll always be there. That's the idea. The history that goes along with it, some of these people you see breaking out, it's just, it will always be there. Those pictures will always be there. The videos will always be there. I'm more excited about the history books and what it looks like. And
you can go back, like even if you miss something, you can go back to, I can't remember what your first event you have on there, but you can go back to those events and still purchase prints and stuff
and for as long as I plan on, it holds itself up. It's not, they will always be there. And if they're not, I will make sure that everybody has an opportunity at them. But as far as I'm concerned, they'll always be there. That's the plan. The history for Texas arm wrestling increases, and that makes me happy.
Yep.
All right, fellas, you guys have a good night. I will see you on the next one. These are fun. I'm enjoying it. I hope we do it more.
Yes, we definitely need to do it more.
I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.
Take
All
care.
right, buddy.
What I've been saying. Nice.
Yep.
I thought, you guys had kind of come to a, common ground. It feels like you two are still a little bit.
No. I don't think so. I think we're on the same page now with the whole just tier system. Still have 2 tiers. Have something for the air quotes amateurs, and then something for the higher rated individuals, and that's better for like a healthier tournament as far as amateurs getting their feet wet and just having a shot at winning a medal and placing and podiuming and in getting that feedback. And then, the pros still get what we always get, which is just competition.
Yeah.
I was coming at it from 2 different approaches. One, as a middle of the pack guy, I don't think that I'm going to be I don't think I would win a big event, but I think, let's say I'm seated right in the middle. Let's change it. Let's say I'm a high level amateur. Let's say I win amateur events, but I am not ready for the pro class. I think one giant seated bracket triple elimination gives me the chance to still fight the amateurs right below me, but then I also get to go against the worst pro, right? And it is the perfect crossroad of I'm a low level pro, high level amateur. I'm not expected to, I shouldn't compete amateurs if I'm really trying to challenge myself, but I don't stand a chance against the big pros. But if I'm right in the middle of the bracket, well, guess what? Now I get that healthy competition on both sides of me, and I can go 3-2, 2-2, or 3-3, something to that effect, 4-3. I won't win, I won't medal, but hey, I beat the 2 worst pros in the tournament, and some of the lower level amateurs got to go against me to test themselves against me. So it's this fluidity that I was aiming for. And it also, it's more matches in a single class, which is better for Aries because it's just more data. And that was my whole point of view. I understand I still think that that's perfect for that point of view. But if we're just looking at it from an event point of view, then I think having the 2 tiers is even better. I argued with Corey about this last night. In fact, we actually put on boxing mitts in my backyard and we just sparred for like 25 minutes. And he won. And it basically came down to, he was like, look at the biggest events in the country. And he listed a couple. And one of them was Winter Blast, which they do the opposite of what I'm suggesting. They double down on a like novice, amateur, semi-pro, and pro. And what you end up when you do that is people are so eager to pull all the classes because everyone wants a shot at winning something. You'll have an amateur pull, novice, amateur, semi-pro. Like that high-level amateur is going to try to squeeze in every last chance he has at getting more matches in and a chance to podium. And he's going to spend $120, $160 to do it. And at the end of the day, when you're looking at entries and you're looking at what you paid on medals and everything else, those events do really well. And they're huge. And because more people show up. What about the semi-amateurs? Semi-amateurs. So, it's a really good point that he used, to use Winter Blast. And there was a couple other events. And I thought, yeah, okay, you're right. There's I guess that does make sense. And it never dawned on me. And then he looked at triple elimination events and how they're smaller. And how they don't spawn competition the way I thought they would. The truth is, if it's just a big open tournament, it turns out that some of the lower level guys are not interested in going. And that's total evidence that he used to describe some situations that he's seen and talked to individuals. And I was like, really biting my tongue because it makes me angry. Because I'm like, even when I was an amateur, not my mindset at all. I mean, when I was green and I sucked, but I wanted the smoke from everybody. Like, let's do it, you know? And then even more so when I was like a high level amateur and I knew I couldn't compete in the pro class, right? Like, at the time it was guys like still Ronnie Morales, Johnny Chavez, like these West Texas guys that are really good. I think Billy pulled 220 once upon a time. Did you, or you always been 242?
No, I've always been. I think that 220 that shows up in my deal is a Masters.
Oh, okay. Anyways, so
that's the only reason. I've never been that skinny.
Yeah. So there's people who I was not ready to pull like with I knew at the pros, but like maybe the worst pro at the tournament, maybe I could work with him, but maybe that was it. But I liked that. Like I liked the idea of just leveling up and just knowing that I'm getting better. And if you're an amateur just going to events and you're just meddling, but you're arm wrestling other amateurs, how do you know if you're actually getting better?
How did you make the switch from amateur to open? And went and
I was about 2 years in. It was Lubbock. It was the Lubbock tournament last year. I was when I pulled Zamora in a super match. And I just remember talking to Z. I think it was that tournament was either, I think we both graduated at the same time. It was my last amateur event, and it may have been his last or the one right before that was his last. But we both crossed over into the open at the same time.
What did you learn after that? I mean, or what do you think
what was my what made, like, what was the mental switch of like, I'm ready to do it? I looked around at all the amateurs and I realized that regardless of the fact that I knew I was still going to get my butt kicked by the pros, I felt like I was too good for most amateurs. And I was like, what am I getting from pulling people that I know I'm better than, like brand new guys? Because we don't have a novice class.
Did any of your teammates help you with that?
I didn't have teammates. No, it was just me.
Taking Frank a long time to get anything that looks like a team.
No, I mean, even at this point, I'm the most. I mean, there's Robert Fowler now here in San Angelo, but even before him, I was the most tenured guy here, and even now, like on our team, I'm, Robert has a family and a job and all this. I'm the guy that's probably calling the shots with the guys, working with them a lot more, trying to help make those decisions.
Where do you guys hold your practices?
Pardon me?
Where do you all hold your practices?
My living room every Thursday night.
Probably not going to grow too much in there.
Yeah. It's I've had this conversation with myself 1,000 times. I actually hate arm wrestling new people. That whole introduction, like, when you're at a bar and you see the girls and you're like, come over here and let's get them on. I hate that. I hate that whole interaction. I don't like getting non-arm wrestlers on the table. I think it's not safe. I don't think it's cute. If someone's genuinely interested, I will give them the full safety rundown. I won't pull them though. Like, I've had guys who was like, can we arm wrestle though? And I'm like, I will work with you in the center of the table, but I'm not going to arm wrestle you. And they're like, why not? And I'm like, because you don't know how to arm wrestle yet. And I'm not about to break somebody's arm. I can't do it. I won't do it. Mentally, I'm not there, not for me. And so I feel very passionate.
And that's part of teaching the sport, right? Is to make sure.
Yes. Yeah. So like, new guy on our team, Henry, he just competed at the Texas State event. Didn't pin him for his first like 6 practices.
Yeah.
And he's turning out great, but
besides from
I told him, I said, he goes, hey, when are we going to go hard? Like, it was like after his 3rd practice. And I was like, when you prove to me that you can surge against my arm without putting yourself in a bad position, and that I can trust myself to surge against you without, like, we worked like side to side stuff like this, but we didn't arm wrestle. We didn't spar until 6 or 7 practices down the road. And I know some people think that's crazy. They're like, how did he even stick around that long? How did you keep him interested? I told him up front, I said, hey man, I'm going to try to do everything right with you. And what that means to me is we're going to go super slow. We're going to go through the paces, the body of work in the state, Billy, all comers all at weight, every loss taken back. Are you not entertained? The body of work in the state, Billy.
Dustin's still on.
Is he referring to you not saying he's the number one in the state at 198?
Well, I don't think I said that.
Well, you said Ronnie's the number one at 198, and
Well, on the rankings, he is. Yes.
okay. I think that's what Dustin's getting at, though.
Well, here's the thing. Okay, but we can do. I mean, I don't know. I mean, oh, what is this? Yeah.
I think he's agreeing with me.
Oh yeah. I mean, no doubt. I mean, look. Here's the thing. You know, I don't know if. Here's the thing. I don't know 100%. I don't talk to Ronnie. Maybe he talks to Ronnie more. Obviously, he talks to Ronnie more than I do. Has Ronnie progressed out of the? Is he never coming back to 198? Is he not? Is he never going to make 198 again?
I'm
Because
sure.
It seems like
I'm
every
sure.
time we talk to him, it seems like every time we talk to him, right? And then we find out his weight, like he's only like 205, 210, right?
I think he was heavier than that at the TAO event, like and the after pulls and stuff. He was probably
Well, maybe the after pulls because he wasn't planning on pulling. I mean,
yeah.
D Woody was what 217 after he rehydrated and
Right.
filled back up. I mean, so yeah. So he's the same. I mean, Trey says he was in Lubbock he was 217. That's not. I mean, D Woody cuts that to get to 198. So if you're telling me that he's no longer a 198, sure. You know. But
on the TAO rankings, which you can't edit unless there's a super match or until there's a inactivity clause implemented January 1st.
Or Ronnie can call me and say, "Hey, I'm no longer a 198 guy."
Yeah.
You know, I can't just. I mean, we haven't built in the mechanism yet, and we will get there. Trust me, but not as of right yet. I try not to do anything too hastily, right?
Yeah.
Because we started off so open. And to come crashing down with all these requirements, I just want to ease into them. So unless Ronnie calls me and says, "Hey, I'm no longer a 198 guy. I don't need to be up there," then until we get to a point where we implement a mechanism where at some point he has to, compete at 198 to maintain that, then unless he gets challenged for a super match, he'll stay there. But if he's not a 198 guy, then he should call me and send me a message and say, "Hey, I'm no longer a 198 guy."
Who thinks they're better at 198?
Well, that's what I'm getting at. Is like that would be a really good super match to see.
Well, I'm saying, why is this in question so much right now at the moment?
Because DeWoody won Texas State 198 3 years in a row, and Ronnie hasn't pulled anyone at 198 in Texas in 3 years.
All out Ronnie.
Well, I totally said that D Woody is the state champ. Period. I don't care who didn't show up. I mean, like I said, okay, we got Dimitri, right? Dimitri comes in. If he comes in at 220, he takes 220, 242s, and possibly 243s. All right.
Yeah.
But he's not the state champ. He's not the state champ.
That's true. It's different.
Period.
Rankings are different from the state champs, which are also can be different from who actually is the best puller at a given time in that weight.
I don't know. There's so much going on. Dustin is spamming the chat. And
yeah, I'm trying to look at it. Oh, here we go.
He goes, "I'm not talking about rankings." Let's see. Then I got Trey. How can you be ranked if you don't compete? I think we've talked about that. I mean, Ronnie competes. That's why we have an activity clause. We don't have the clause that says he has to compete at 198 yet. All right. Thought the question was, who is the current guy? I mean, it depends on. I guess it depends on if Ronnie. If Ronnie makes 198, we don't know if Ronnie's the guy or if you're the guy. But of the current people competing at 190. At the current people, look, this is no shade on anybody. We know Ronnie. Ronnie
I don't think there's any shade. I don't
killer.
think anyone should take anything the wrong way.
Yeah.
I think it's how you view it. Who is number one? The guy who's defended the number one Texas state championship.
And what aspect are we talking about? If we're talking about a guy that consistently and currently pulls at 198, yes, I would say D Woody is the active current 198 guy
until Frank makes 198. is what you're saying. Is what you're saying. I was 217 this morning, so I'm a 198er. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
I don't know if it works that way.
I mean, yeah. I mean, look, that would be. I would love to see if Ronnie can make 198. I wish he would, and let's set that match up.
Yeah, let's do it at the Southern.
I mean, let's have that match, and then we can really tell. I mean, still, D. Woody's a state champion, regardless of whatever happens. He's the guy that showed up. He's the guy that dominated. He's a state champion for 3 years running. So there's no question in my mind about that, you know. But there is a question on if Ronnie can make 198. If he does, or if that's his deal, that would be a hell of a freaking match to see.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that because I think Ronnie would win. I think I'd want to see that match.
Yeah, right now I think Cody Haga has an open match with Ronnie that they're hashing out the details for at 220. And I don't know. I mean, Dustin's in the chat. He can say if he's interested in that, but I think Dustin right now is interested in challenging, taking some names at 198 in big tournaments.
Sure.
Frank, please make 198. See, he's my biggest fan. He loves me. He loves me.
No, and sure. And look, and that's the thing. We're going to get there on the state rankings. We're going to get there. And we're going to implement a mechanism that's going to phase guys out of classes that they don't compete in anymore. We're going to get there. We're just not there yet. I'm not making that change today. But that change will come down the road. So either whatever happens first, either that change or Ronnie says, I'm not a 198 guy anymore, you know?
Yeah.
And then the state rankings change.
I wore this jersey just so anyone who's interested in the Super 64, these jerseys are what you get when you sign up. They're pretty great. They have like the Whiskey Baron on them, some logos, Aries arm, Super 64. There's a big logo on the back. They're real lightweight, great, comfortable jerseys. Anyways, shout out Corey Miller. Just thought I'd throw it on there.
Is there friends just for that next upcoming event? Or?
Yeah, well, the one in May.
Yeah.
What's the one in May? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What's the clothing allowance? And
my understanding is Corey doesn't really do a clothing allowance.
We had that conversation before too.
So, yeah, he's not very fond of those sort of things.
He wouldn't go for about 140 something pound allowance. You don't think? Never mind.
He's just
no. But what did we say? Dustin and Ronnie at that event, super match headliner. There you go.
Well, I mean, look, I mean, it seems like nobody wants to say it, but everything that I'm seeing in the chat is Ronnie is not a 198er anymore. So somebody talk to him and say, let's make that official. Otherwise you're just going to have to wait on me to implement the criteria that eliminates him from that class.
Well, that's definitely much less controversy and less, commotion, right? If you just do it,
well, obviously you can. Yeah, if I just take the blame of it, yeah, sure. Nobody else.
That'd be great. Nobody
else has to get their hands dirty.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I'll take it. Not sure what it is, but
I feel like I was going somewhere about state rankings, other than this 198 business, but it's probably.
Well, I mean, here's the thing too.
Oh, I didn't even talk about the triple M. I'm the triple M guy. Did I talk about it? No, you say your thing. What were you gonna say?
No. Okay. No, go ahead.
No, just earlier, because we're bouncing back and forth so much, right, based off the chat. But
yes.
I was trying to address the in between. Do you agree that if we blended the classes, the low level pros and high level amateurs would have perfect competition? Like neither of them would go 0-2 or win out. They would just have great competition. Your worst pro versus your highest level amateur, according to Aries.
Look, I'm not saying that the format is a bad format. I just don't think it works and look, it depends on the promoter as well. If I'm a promoter that I want to throw 2 events a year, right? and I don't care what happens at the end of it. If I make $1 or if I make $2,000, it doesn't matter. And I'm just going to put everything that comes from the event into the event, and I only throw 2 events a year, and there's nothing beyond those, then that format could really be good.
Right.
You just throw a tournament, right?
You just don't get. Yeah, I heard you say this earlier. You just don't get the numbers. You don't get the money from it because injuries, people double classing. Even if for triple elimination you were to charge more,
I don't think it makes up the difference.
It wouldn't make up the difference. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I like Corey's already convinced me of all this. Like, and he used anecdotal evidence. It's just to do the tier system or to do the 4 tiers like amateur, semi-pro, novice, this and that. I feel like that only really works at bigger tournaments, a big state tournament or something where you're going to have enough people to fill those entries. Otherwise, you're just going to end up with like 2 or 3 guys in every class. And how, like, is that fun? Does that do anything for anybody?
Yeah.
It's not very productive.
Now look, for like I said, I'm not saying I actually don't like the format at all. It just depends on the scenario in which it's implemented. I don't think that works for TAL at all in the model of what we do, and trying to push everything forward. The next event pays for the next event, and then everything builds up.
Yeah. I mean, I can run some numbers in a little bit and just see what it looks like. But I think you're right. I think that you can't. There's no way to really justify. There's no way to combat how much extra money a promoter would make from an amateur pulling AMs and pros on both arms, which happens all the time, or multi-classing in the AMs. Are you bound to multi-class in the one major bracket? I don't, well,
you can't, right? So if I'm a 198 AM and I want to dabble in the open, I can only enter that one class.
No, right. But I'm saying if you're a 198 AM, you'd enter the 198 class, the 220 class, and the 242 class. And
maybe not though.
Regardless of being an AM or not, you're always seated based off your rating. So if you're a 198 guy, or if you're a 176 guy and you're pulling up those weight classes like Chris Hood does, you probably have a really bad 242 rating. So you'll be at the very bottom of that.
Oh, sure. No, somebody like that, right? If you're double classing as far as weight goes, but we have a lot of people. We have a lot of people that double class AM to open, in the same class. Well, you eliminate that option, right? And then maybe they do a double class on another weight category or something like that. And they may be lower and stuff. Look, I think the format is cool, and I think it works for. Like I would do it in a one-off, right?
Sure. Would you be interested in competing in one yourself if you just saw it? Yeah.
Like I said, any event in any format you could probably come up with, I'd go, I'll do it at least once to see if I like it.
Yeah.
I
mean, I also just like it because it gives me one extra pull, triple elimination. And if it's seated, and it's like the way I see it is, you can't argue with the results. A lot of the time people will complain, the bracket didn't fall in my favor, whatever the case might be. If we did it like this, it'd be completely standardized. And then,
you could do the same thing. Yeah.
Chance to have 3 losses. Really, it's like, it gives you that opportunity to end up wherever you should end up. And I think that's super cool. Like I, as a competitor who's and let's say in a super big class of non-national guys, I wholeheartedly think I could place top 5, triple elimination seeded. I think, and that's what I'm fighting for. I'm fighting for and I think that's fun. And I also like to pull more and get more matches. Well,
keep the idea strong, because I was talking with Trayton at the beginning of this. And I've talked with Dustin about this too. So the format's going to get really, really weird for TAL in 2020.
Yep.
7.
Because of the ladies' classes?
No. Because of bringing state central every year.
Oh, okay.
Because it messes up the model of rotation. It messes up. So So if I take state, and so it'll come back around full circle in 2026. It'll come back to San Antonio where it started, right? let's say we don't have a regional that year, and we just continue with the model, right? And we have all the other regional events. Well, in 2027, when we don't rotate that to another region, what do we do?
What do you mean? What do you have? What's the?
We only have 4 events in Texas State. So that means we keep Texas State central, and one region, if we stay with the same, doesn't get a regional.
I don't understand. Like, wouldn't just Southern not get a regional?
That's what I'm getting at. Is right. So the first year, I'm totally like we're cool with that, right? We're cool with not.
But aren't there already a lot of other events in the area that could suffice? I mean, there's more in Texas than just the regional. No, okay.
No.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, that's a problem to figure out.
So here's the thing, and this is what I talked to Dustin about, right? So, and let's say now we're talking years down the road, right? We're talking in 2027 when this problem presents itself. We move, what would naturally be a rotation, Texas State would move to the east. Well, it's not going to move to the east. It's going to stay central somewhere. Whether it stays in
I
San
see.
Antonio,
So you're thinking about changing it so that every region one year doesn't get a regionals.
Well, that's the thing. I think that would probably hurt in the long run, right? Is that if a region didn't get Texas State and they didn't get a regional?
Yeah, I mean, I would whatever you do, I don't know if oscillating the events every year is the best for arm wrestling growth. I think to grow events in general, having events the same time of year in the same place all the time consistently, it just lets people, people just know, November 14th, that's roughly when Texas State is every year, and I know it's in San Antonio. I can start mentally preparing for that.
Yes.
Really
I
far
agree
in
with
advance.
Yeah. What I'm getting at is this. So here in San Antonio, me and Dustin can throw an event. We can throw an event next weekend if we want to. It's just easy, right? Dustin has built up this, rapport with venues. We have venues at our disposal that we can just call pretty much every weekend, any weekend, and go, hey, we want to have an event. They're down. We can throw an event super quick. We've got tables. We got all the equipment. We're both here. Everything's here. So, like, what I'm leaning towards more is, all the regions will keep their regionals. The East will have a region. And if Texas State happens to be in San Antonio, then we find a convenient spot throughout the year to throw a random event.
Maybe the regions keep the qualifiers, and then you still have your state, central.
But
centrally located.
Well, that's what I'm getting at, is that every region would basically, now we throw 6 events instead of 5. And every region would have a regional event, and then Texas State would be Texas State. But it's easy for us here in San Antonio to just put a tournament somewhere, because it's so convenient for us to throw an event, right? We just got to find a time slot. There's no travel for us involved. There's no, anything like that. We have refs easily accessible, close enough, So San Antonio is pretty easy for us to throw a one-off event.
Hello.
Hey, Todd.
Howdy.
So let's see. Let's do 16 times, that's 32 times 4.
Oh, you're mathing.
Yeah. 8, 12, 128. So that's 128 people or something. And then, so we'll do. I'm just, Rick, someone says 33% more matches. And I don't think it is actually 33% more matches. I
don't think it's that high either. But it does. I mean, like when we did that one in Oklahoma,
and it's going to be less matches since you're not hosting the entire. So it's actually fewer matches if you do one big class, because instead of having amateur pro, I mean that's 4. That's 2 losses on this side, 2 losses.
One
on that
less
side.
loss for everybody.
It's one less loss for everybody. And you don't have people double classing. So actually, I'm almost 100% sure it's fewer matches. So the tournament would be faster. I have a theory though, or not theory. I have a suggestion. What if for a small regional qualifier, like the one that we had here in San Angelo, you're seeing the numbers, you see like, oh, we're at 60, 70 entries.
You make it triple.
Make it triple.
Yeah, I've had that thought.
I like the idea of still having the AMs and the open and seeding it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Still.
that's the main. That's the running idea. Like that's the
Yeah.
best idea. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what Colorado State does, and you know that's what.
Yeah, I was kind of trying to nudge Sarah at State. I was like, hey, I think this option's built in. What do you think? And she's like, I'm putting it in the way I'm putting it in. I'm like, come on.
It's actually it's built in if you add the numbers though. So
Yeah,
you
yeah,
have
we
to
don't-
go in there and
I think the
enter
next thing
everybody's elo rating.
Corey's working on is putting all the data on a back sheet, and then just as you type in their names, it'll pre-populate with their rating, and then bam,
Yeah.
it'll auto seed. And I think he's working on that, so that would be pretty big.
Yeah.
That would be
Really
huge.
one.
Yeah. Because not having to ask anybody for their rating and rely on them to look it up, or rely on you to have somebody there to look it up, and then during registration would be a huge time saver.
Yeah, I'd hate to see who I'm seated up against closest to my numbers because it'd take a lot to get that low.
I mean,
So,
that's good. I mean, it just
be the
means
next
you.
guy.
Means it gives you your best shot at not going 0-2 though, right?
Yeah, well, then I end up beating a guy I've already beat, and then a novice that, I probably should have taken a little longer on the match. But, yeah, I don't know.
Well, we have been on for 2 hours and 51 minutes.
Let's get out. Let me out.
As
Yeah,
soon as I come on.
48%
You did this
more
last time
matches.
too. But
Hey, I got to
unfortunately,
get the kids to bed first.
yeah. My full-time job starts in about an hour and a half. So
Yeah.
That's
my real life job.
your real life job. Yeah, I was gonna start the podcast off with because you're talking about doing all these things and communicating with these guys and this and that, and I was just gonna say, how do you manage to be a father, husband, maintain a full-time job, run the TAO, and do all those other things? I feel like any one of those could qualify as like all your time. Because I mean, comparing you to myself,
Yeah.
I have absolutely no responsibilities, and yet you still make time for me sometimes. I'm just not sure
Hey.
how you do it.
I could tell you in a nutshell, I'm not always good at all things, right? And I get a lot of dirty looks.
I get a lot of dirty
So
looks. You go through your whole day at work like this, just grumpy.
yeah. But
Yeah, it makes sense, I guess.
anyway,
myself.
I enjoyed the hell out of it. We're gonna start doing these more. I think.
No, there's always so much to talk about in the arm wrestling community, especially depending on how controversial you want to get, right? Because it's one thing
Yes.
just to share a normal take, be like, hey, I think arm wrestling would be better if it was like this, and people would be like, oh, if that's the point of view, it's fine. It's another thing to get on here and to dog on Devin Larrick, and things.
We did that a little bit.
Yeah, I know, but within reason, it could have gotten a lot more,
Oh yeah, we yeah.
It
we
stayed-
could definitely go like dark web. There's a lot of
Sure.
information out there we could really get dark with.
Yeah, but I just think that it's like one of the comments I posted that we didn't touch on is like what would grow the sport more, less stringent rules or more stringent
Oh yes,
or more stringent everything. Like what if you had to sign up on an app for the TAO to participate in the TAO? There was pre-registration, and hey, if it's 2 hours before the event and you're not registered, you don't compete. You don't get to sign up the day of. That's not how this works.
Well, and not to go down another rabbit hole, but we can definitely save that talking point for the next one. And
you got to buy a TAL shirt to compete.
Sure.
That's the evolution
that's
of
common in most leagues and most sports.
You
cannot show up in your shirt and compete in like there's leagues that don't let you show up and compete in your clothes for a cornhole event.
Look, when
What
we
if my
signed-
team jersey has a TAL logo on it?
Look, everybody wants to be mainstream, but nobody wants to do mainstream shit. All right. When I signed Lucian up for Little League Soccer, he buys a uniform that he has to wear. He has to wear certain color socks. He has to wear a certain color jersey, certain color shorts. It just is normal because that is what we've done for decades. And I bet
it wasn't super cheap either.
Well, no, it's not. It's not. That's what I'm saying. We could really go down a whole another.
I mean, I'm
two
ready
hours.
to put up on that side of things. I'm ready to put on the gloves and draw my sword. So,
hey, next one we do, that's the first thing out of the box for sure.
Okay. All right. Well, write that down.
I'm writing it
See you
down
later,
now.
Todd. Have a good night. Thanks, Dustin. See you later, Billy.
Y'all take care.
Very good.
Later, fellas.
See ya.
All right. Have a good one.